All right, it is officially here, the day of the DATAcated conference. Super excited to be here today. My name is Cassie Kozher, and I will be your host for the day. So this has been a long time coming. We planned this conference about 2 months ago, and at this point, I really just want to kick things off. I want to let you know that today we will be live for exactly 4 hours on LinkedIn and YouTube, and you're going to get to interact with these amazing 16 speakers. They're going to provide 10-minute lightning speed talks and answer some questions from the live audience. We're also going to have some really fun giveaways throughout the event. There are 4 tracks, as you can see here, on broad topics that we'll cover today. We've got data governance and wrangling, data literacy and visualization, data strategy and leadership, as well as data careers and networking. Now, before we begin, I really want to thank everybody who has signed up and showed up for the first ever DATAcated conference hosted fully on LinkedIn Live. I also want to thank our amazing sponsors. We've got Fivetran, Telius, Pyramid Analytics, Click, Rivery, Perdago, Differentia Consulting, Plaid Consulting, and Data Robot. Now, none of this would be possible without the amazing community partners that have joined forces with us to provide giveaways and to help promote the conference. I absolutely want to thank our amazing data community. Most of this is from LinkedIn, but these are some of the awesome shots from the virtual DATAcated photo booth that we were using. If you sign up, you actually have access to this photo booth. Lastly, I want to thank you again for joining, and I really hope you gain a lot of value from these lightning speed 10-minute talks. I really wish the best of luck to all of the speakers. I know it's not easy to get your entire message across in just 10 minutes. Definitely encourage you to network with all the other participants that are joining live in the comments section. And most importantly, I hope everybody has a really great time and has fun. At this point, I'm going to play a very quick video that provides instructions on how to take part in some of these giveaways. So here's the 2-minute video. Hey everybody, just a really quick announcement. I want to thank our community partners for providing some really awesome giveaways. If you'd like to be considered for any of the giveaways, simply ask great questions or leave insightful comments in the live chat, and we'll select winners after the conference. All right, here are the awesome giveaways that you can get a chance to win today. We've got Super Data Science. Kirill Eremenko is giving away 3 double Super Data Science annual memberships. 1 for you and 1 for a colleague or a friend. This includes access to so many awesome courses and content in the data science space. Business Science University. Matt Dancho is giving some of his awesome courses away. We've got 1 winner who will get access to his Business Science 101 and 102 courses, and 3 winners will get access to his 101 courses. Lights on Data. George Farrakhan is providing 5 of his business glossary courses. The course allows participants to learn step-by-step how to implement an easy-to-use and efficient business glossary that users will adopt and management will praise. Gilbert is giving away 5 copies of his book, People Skills for Analytical Thinkers. Boost your communication and advance your career and life. Pact, we're actually giving away 8 e-copies of John Thompson's book, Building Analytics Teams. You'll actually hear from John Thompson live during our conference. And the DATAcated Academy. Of course, I'll provide some courses. We'll select 10 winners to be enrolled in the Visual Best Practices course for free. We'll have other fun giveaways throughout the conference from some of our speakers, so definitely stay tuned for that. Also, if you're joining the conference but have not officially registered, please go ahead to storybydata.com/DATAcated conference at some point today to register so you can receive the post-conference recording as well as the virtual goodies from our sponsors. Thank you. All right, awesome. I definitely hope you get to win some really cool goodies as part of that giveaway. At this point, I just want to remind you, as you're joining, let us know where you're tuning in from. We typically get such a really diverse audience, and it's always interesting to see where people are joining the sessions from. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our very first speaker of the session, who's actually going to help me kick things off for data governance and wrangling. So Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer, I'll provide a quick intro, and then I'm going to bring him up on stage. So Scott Taylor, he's also known as the Data Whisperer or the guy with the puppets. He's enlightened countless business executives to the value and power of proper data management. He focuses on business alignment and the strategic why rather than the systemic implementation and technical how. As principal consultant of MetaMeta Consulting, he helps enterprises and tech brands tell their data story. He lives in Connecticut, where he often kayaks in Black Rock Harbor, and he can juggle pins and blow a square bubble. Yes, I had to say that. Without further ado, here is Scott Taylor.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? Great to be here, Kate. Nice to see you. How's everybody doing today? I want to introduce you to a couple of my friends, of course. I'm the CDO, the Chief Dog Officer, and the ITB. Buzzwords. Okay, guys, that was fun, but we got to get a little more serious. I am super excited and honored to be kicking off this tremendous conference. And before we get too far here, let's give a big hand to Kate, shall we? You see those little emojis down on the bottom, the clapping, the hearts, the all the other ones down there. Let's see.
The thinking face, the why am I here?
What? Yeah, see
the why am I here thinking face. They have one of those too.
They all have them. Everybody's got them on there. So let's see a steady. There's 6,000 of us on LinkedIn for 4 hours. All we want to do is see clapping emojis and light bulbs and hearts and all the rest of it. So thanks for letting me kick this off. Now, the reason I'm starting is because I talk about where data starts. I talk about where data value starts. And everything you're going to see today from everybody that everyone else is talking about doesn't matter unless you've got good data to begin with. You're going to hear about data dashboards, data reports, visualization, data literacy. You're going to hear about data strategy, data leadership, data science, analytics, algorithms, SQL, NoSQL, Python, which reminds me of a riddle. Do you know what a pirate's favorite programming language is? R. All right, enough props. None of that matters. None of it matters unless you've got proper data management. And that's why I'm on first. So as Scott Taylor, the data whisperer, as Kate said, I help people reinforce the strategic value of foundational data, the stuff you start with. I work on where data starts. Many of you work on where data ends up, but I talk about the why, the business why. And spoiler alert, in case you haven't noticed, even though I'm the data whisperer, I don't do a lot of whispering. We save that for the data. We've got to shout about the power and value of proper data management. And everybody wants to be disruptive. And I come by that honestly, by the way. I've been disruptive since the 4th grade. My 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Shapiro, wrote on my report card, Scott is disruptive and distracting to others. I took that as a compliment. Everything everyone does today turns to data. And as your business and your business process go from analog to digital, goes from manual to automated, everything you do turns to data. And enterprises of all sizes are just struggling to make sense of it all because instead of delivering fabulous insights, a lot of it just creates a lot of chaos. So how do you, data leaders, data learners, data lovers, it's your job out there to help determine the truth and derive meaning from all that data. And that's how I look at the space. Data and analytics, determine the truth, derive meaning, data management, business intelligence. I'm on the truth side, hence the meaning of my truth hat here. But when you look at analytics and business intelligence, deriving meaning comes out of data science, data literacy, machine learning, artificial intelligence, visualization, all those things where data ends up. But you got to remember about where data starts. Data management, determining that foundational truth first. Data governance, data quality, master data, reference data, metadata, MDM, RDM, PIM, that's where data starts. So you must determine the truth first before you derive meaning. It's not chicken or egg here. It is egg and omelet. Truth first and then meaning. It brings me to this idea, which all of you probably learned on your first day of data, GIGO. Rubbish in, rubbish out. Garbage in, garbage out. I like to elevate that to what I call the golden rule of data. Do upon your data as you would have it do upon you. It's as sure as gravity. What goes up must come down. What goes in must come out. You've got to get that truth first before you derive meaning. You got to put the good stuff in to get the good stuff out. Because if you put garbage into ERP, you get a lousy ERP. You put garbage into CRM, you get missed customer opportunities. You put garbage into fintech, you might get a visit from the regulators. You get garbage into ML, bad robots. Garbage into BI, BS. Garbage into AI, AS, artificial stupidity. No matter how you slice it, how you dice it, the golden rule of data prevails. Now, a lot of people wonder where data value starts. And I talk to data scientists all the time who are saying, how do I get closer to the business? How do I understand where the business wants to go? How do I understand how to bring value to my business? Well, I will tell you, and what I do in my work is try and boil things down to their essence. And the essence of every business out there, every one of you listening, no matter what kind of company you work for, the essence of your business is to provide value to your relationships through your brands at scale. You may want to jot that down. Provide value to your relationships through your brands at scale. And scale is the determining factor today. Scale is where the magic happens. Scale is where the disruption happens. Scale takes technology. Technology is hardware, software, data. If you've got data, you need data management. There's no way around it. Now, value comes in three ways. How do you grow the business? How do you improve the business? How do you protect your business? Grow might be increase sales. Improve might be operational efficiency. Protect might be mitigate risk. And when you think about those relationships, customer, vendor, partner, prospect, citizen, patient, client, what do you call the things you work with, the people you sell to and buy from and partner with? All those relationships are core to your business. You don't have relationships, you don't have a business. And think about your brands. What do you call those? Is it a product, a service, an offering, a location, a banner? Think about the ingredients and the materials that go into that. All those things, all those domains are managed in data management. So when you're trying to find the way in your data science work to provide value to your brands through your relationships at scale, you've got to look at what data you've got about your relationships and about your brands and where that's managed. The better that stuff is, the better your work's going to be. So the ultimate truth about data management is that the success of every digitally transformative customer initiative, every as-a-service offering, every foray into e-commerce, every enterprise software implementation, every data science program is inextricably linked to the output of your data management efforts. Garbage in, garbage out, the golden rule of data prevails. So a couple of parting thoughts here. Learn your business. Understand the essence of your business. Show how your work in data enables the strategic intentions of your enterprise. It is impossible for you to know too much about your business. A lot of people concentrate on the techniques, on the how. Understand that why for yourself. And collaborate with your data management peers. If you data scientists out there complain about spending somewhere between 60 and 120% of your time munging and wrangling data, maybe there's better data in your organization that you don't know about. Go to those data management peers you've got there. They manage that truth. They handle that truth. They can handle the truth. That's what they do for a living. And they've probably got great content that you might not know about that you can leverage in your work. So don't forget where data starts. Data management first, then business intelligence. So as everything we do turns to data, this is your opportunity to seize it. That's my talk today. Just wanted to talk about where data starts. If you want to learn more about the puppets, be sure to find me on LinkedIn and also on YouTube. I've got a great book coming out called Telling Your Data Story to help put data storytelling in the data management space. And remember one thing finally, if you remember anything else, good decisions made on bad data are just bad decisions you don't know about yet. This is Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer. I want to thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for having me, Kate.
Scott, thank you so much. Wow, your talk is really resonating with over 1,000 people at this point. The comments are literally flying in. Yes, please, round of applause for Scott. If you can hit those virtual applause buttons, that's the best we could do at this point. Wow, you're garbage in, garbage out, and all your entire talk. I mean, everyone is really loving it. They love your energy. Don't run away, Scott. Hold on. And Beverly's here. She says the dude loves his puppets, no doubt. Thank you, Beverly.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yes, a lot of great feedback for you here, Scott. People are really loving it. My question to you is: so you mentioned you've got a book coming out, telling your data story. Yes. Yes, I do. I got a great book. Here's my electric cover. Tell your data story. Data storytelling for data management. It is 99% buzzword free. So I make that campaign promise.
We've got a deal coming out. It's pre-publication. We'll put a link in the comments there. We're giving 33% off with the code DATA33. So we'll make sure to post that. But everybody wants to take a look at that book. That was my COVID project this summer here to try and really encapsulate a lot of the teachings and learnings I've gotten over the years to help people really put that data story together.
Awesome. So just last question on the book. Who is this for? Who's the audience?
It's really for data managers and data practitioners who are trying to explain why data is so important to their organization. But I think there's another audience in terms of data scientists out there who are trying to understand, again, where their data fits, where their work about data fits, and how to, for their own self, understand that value, understand the foundational elements that go into a business. So, again, a lot of the chatter I see out there in the data science space is about how do we get closer to the business? I think if you read this book, it'll give you some clues and help you understand what your business is about, and that's how you get close to it.
Awesome. There are some questions here about your hat, the truth hat. Why don't you tell people about your hat?
So my hat there, yes, that's my brand there. So determine the truth first. We all want a single version of the truth. I'm all about the truth in terms of what data management is all about. It's determining the truth for an organization. A lot of work goes into deriving meaning, which is the analytics side. And so I really try and reinforce that truth stuff. But I also have my DATAcated shirt as well. So I'm like a NASCAR here. I got all kinds of brands all over me.
Awesome. There's a comment here from Gary Clark asking, can you repeat your last quote? Decisions made on bad data.
Absolutely, Gary. This is my most quoted quote. Good decisions you make on bad data are just bad decisions you don't know about yet.
Awesome. I love that. I think that's a great note to end on. And Scott, I want to really thank you for your time today. Guys, definitely go check out his book, his YouTube channel. We'll add some links in the comments, although they are flying pretty quickly, Scott, so we might have to add them a couple times so people can see them.
All right, super. Thank you so much, Kate. So thrilled to be part of this. And I'm going to kick back now and watch the rest of the show.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, at this point, we're going to move on to our next speaker, Cassie Kozher. So Cassie is the chief data scientist at Google. You all might have seen her posts on LinkedIn and Medium and Twitter. She's basically on a mission to democratize decision intelligence and safe, reliable AI. She's provided guidance on more than 100 projects and designed Google's analytics program, personally training over 20,000 Googlers in statistics, decision-making, and machine learning. All right, without further ado, here's Cassie.
Hi friends, I'm Cassie Kozher, and I am delighted to join you today for the DATAcated conference to talk to you about how to wrestle inherited data. And if you leave this talk right now and you only take one thing away from it, remember this. Inherited data are easier to get, but they are harder to trust. And that should color your entire approach to them. Okay, still here? What are inherited data? They're also called secondary data. And the thing about them is that you inherit them. In other words, these are data that are not yours, that you did not collect. Primary data, on the other hand, are the ones that you design and control the data collection process for. So in other words, you custom make those data sets for your needs. Primary data is about control and quality. Unfortunately, quality and control does come at a price. So there's a bit of a tug of war there. I like to say that inherited data sets are a bit like inherited toothbrushes. An act of desperation. You'd always prefer to get your own toothbrush and data set. But because primary data can be really expensive to collect, and because the world is collecting so much data, there's a lot of opportunity to go and find beautiful inspiration in data sets that you didn't create. But don't assume that inherited data will yield anything useful. It might not, that's the reality of it. And while we're on the topic of sad things, the tooth fairy is not real. So you got hold of an inherited data set, cool. Should you even bother with it? Well, ask yourself these 5 questions. First, what was the purpose for which it was collected? And the further away that purpose is from your purpose, the more you should steel yourself for potential disappointment. 2, competence. How competent were the people who collected it? Do you trust them not to have entered a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of errors? They were supposed to put in a 15, did they put in a 13? Watch out for that. Do you trust them? Do you trust their data collection? Number 3, agenda. Do these people have some kind of agenda, which means that their personal biases might get into the data and might lead you down the wrong track as well? Number 4, clarity. How clear is the documentation? How available are the people who made that data in the first place? Can you ask them questions, or do you have to rely on their notes? Were their notes written clearly with the expectation that someone was going to inherit that data? That's going to change the equation in terms of how much you can expect to get out of these data. And then finally 5, processing. Do you trust the data not to have been transformed, skewed, messed around with in some way that is going to destroy its ability to help you with your needs? And once you've checked those 5 things and you're tempted to get into the data, what you will do first is split your data. You always do that. Some for exploration and then some for rigorous testing later. And you only explore the exploratory bit. Now with that exploratory bit, as you're getting into it, think about it not just as data in a database, a spreadsheet, or whatever, but you have to imagine what actually happened when those data were collected. And the fuzzier your view of that, the more rubbishy your assumptions are going to be. That's related to the amount of expertise and experience that you have with that data domain. So if you know nothing about the domain, please tread lightly and don't take yourself too seriously. Explore and sanity check your data. Spend a long time with the documentation. Own the assumptions that you're being forced to make, and then downgrade your conclusions if you don't have a lot of expertise and real-world understanding of what actually went down when those data were collected. This isn't about perfectionism. It is perfectly all right to aim to improve your imperfect understanding of the world. But you should be honest with yourself and others about how much it is that you think you know. Inherited data are amazing. Our world is enjoying an unprecedented abundance of data. There's so much information. It can be so interesting and useful and helpful. As long as you treat it correctly and don't take things seriously that don't deserve to be taken seriously. So here's my advice. Remember that inherited data are easier to get, and there's so many great things about that. But they are, and should be, harder to trust. Good luck, have fun, allow yourself to enjoy and take advantage of that amazing abundance of data that the world is collecting. But be sure that you don't allow it to take advantage of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Cassie. I always learn so much, and there are so many great comments coming in about your analogies and how people just love how you tell stories and how you explain the complex stuff and make it really simple. My favorite part by far is when you refer to inherited data sets as somebody else's toothbrush, an act of desperation. Yes, you can use them, but you should definitely ask some questions. You know, maybe they have teeth issues or something. At this point, I would like to go ahead and let's hear from our sponsor, Perdago. right. I really love that fairy tale commercial from Predago. Definitely go and check out predago.com for more. At this point, I'd love to introduce our next speaker. Really excited to introduce Christina Satopoulos, and I'm hoping I said that name right, Christina. Christina is currently working as an analytical consultant at Google, helping clients get the most out of their data. And she's helping them understand their consumers and find market opportunities. She also lectures in analytics topics across top business schools. She has traveled to 55 countries and counting. That's probably 50 more countries than me. And she's known for her hashtag Book a Week challenge. Definitely check that out. It's hosted on LinkedIn as well, where she encourages others to put down their phones. Don't put down your phone right now if you're tuning in on your phone. But she basically encourages people to read books. She has been reading a book a week for years and hopes to inspire others to pick up the same habit. All right, at this point, I'd love to bring Christina up on our virtual stage. Hello, Christina. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to hearing all about how SQL or SQL or Squirrel or whatever we're calling it these days is not going anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and pass over the virtual stage and get out of your way.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kate, for kicking us off. And as well, thank you to Cassie and Scott. And for all of the attendees today, I'm really happy to see you taking advantage to stay connected from wherever you are, to participate in events like this for virtual networking and continuous learning. So as Kate mentioned, I am dedicated to the world of data, which is why I will be speaking on a very special data topic today: why SQL isn't going anywhere. Since we have a lot of attendees, I want to take advantage and ask the golden question. Do you pronounce it SQL or SQL? Or maybe you call it squirrel. Share in the chat what you think it is by typing simply SQL or SEQUEL. There's a very strong split in the field on the proper pronunciation, and this is a never-ending debate. I actually started running a survey yesterday on LinkedIn, and so far, with over 1,000 respondents, we have 40% saying SQL, 55% saying SQL, and another 5% with squirrel. So go ahead and you can go ahead and share my screen, Kate. And as you all share your answers in the chat, I'll get started on my talk. So I'll personally be referencing it as SQL throughout, although I'm very tempted to call it squirrel. Kate dared me to do that today, and it's tempting, to be honest. But my relationship with SQL, so I use it or forms of it on a daily basis. So for example, if I'm using something like BigQuery, then I can query data using the SQL language. And I often use it in internal systems that use their own variants of SQL. And I'm personally a very big fan of it. I love, working with it to automate reports, to manipulate data, to perform calculations. So before I get into my talk, let's take a quick step back and let's understand what it is. Let's bring everyone up to speed. So what is SQL? It stands for Structured Query Language, and it's used to define and manipulate data in relational databases. So relational databases, they store data in tables with a format, with structures and relationships that are predefined. So it's for very structured data. And in simple terms, you can just think of SQL as the programming language for databases used by database administrators and analysts and so on. And when people ask me for advice, when they're developing their career in the data world, this is actually the #1 language that I say they must know. It's great for you to learn Python, R, SAS, Java, and so on, but I believe SQL is a must. It has been, and it will continue to be so. But in comes in no SQL. This is almost like the non-identical twin brother of SQL. It stands for Not Only Structured Query Language, and it allows you to store and retrieve unstructured data from non-relational databases. And non-relational databases, this means that the data is not stored in a simple table. This is data that can be stored in things like documents, for example, or JSON files, or in a graph or network format, like you could imagine for social media data, for example. And these types of databases, they are not so structured, but the benefit in that sense is that they leave a lot of room for flexibility. It's great for very large, complex, diverse, unstructured data. But there's this common misconception, though, that it's here to replace SQL. And I can tell you that it's not here as a replacement. It's rather an alternative option to solve very different requirements. But what do the stats say? So I'm clearly a numbers person. I love data. Let's let the numbers speak for themselves. As of this year, SQL is 46 years old. So it's almost half a decade alive, and it still dominates the field. And even with the emergence of NoSQL, SQL still holds more than 60% of the market today in usage. As well, a recent analysis of job descriptions by the employment search engine Indeed, they found that 36% of job ads with data mentioned look for SQL as a key skill. And it was the number one, the top skill listed, beating out Python at 26% and R with 18%. And then finally, if we focus on only entry-level jobs, so this would be more data analyst roles, 56% of job ads required SQL as a key skill, and it heavily beat out Python, which came out with 17%, and then R with 18%. So there's no denying it. SQL still dominates by far in the data world. And although the popularity of NoSQL options continue to rise, SQL growth continues to accelerate as well. So why is SQL being challenged? It's true that NoSQL has come into the scene stronger than ever. It gives organization an effective option to work with unstructured data. And it's true that the majority of data around us today is quite unstructured. So think of video, audio, image files, sensor data, even social media posts. But in the end, NoSQL is the wrong tool for many of our modern day applications. It hasn't fully lived up to its hype, while SQL and its databases in parallel have improved in capabilities. So if you ask any analyst, data scientist that works in the field, I can guarantee you that they will say one of their most used languages is SQL. Right next to Python and R, it is just as important, if not more and more. And it's impressive how far the select statement alone can get you. But let's get to the nitty-gritty of today, why we still use SQL and why it's here to stay. So first of all, it's simple. It's very simple. It's user-friendly. It's easy for anyone to learn. I've personally known people in non-technical roles, so managers and marketers, who have learned basic SQL to support in their role. It's also mature and it's stable. So like I said, it's been around since the 1970s. So it's had plenty of time to get solidly battle tested. And the databases themselves are robust. And SQL as a query language, it is too. It's reliable, and that's what companies need. Next is community. So going along with the fact that it's been around so long, SQL has developed it's gathered a very large active community. So I'm talking about users, documentation, developers, and businesses naturally gravitate towards this and this trust that's associated with it. As well, we've got omnipresence. So SQL is literally found everywhere, and it can be used with a variety of different databases. There's lots on the market. So many people are familiar with them. Many people are qualified to use them. And this vast range of users and developers, it's almost like a feedback loop. It continues to grow and feed upon itself, and it's integrated into new and old technologies. There are also very popular open source options now. So you've got MySQL and PostgreSQL, making it more and more widely available for all. And although SQL between vendors or operators isn't completely interchangeable, the syntax doesn't vary so much. So with simple modifications, you can reuse it or migrate queries. And finally is consistency. So it hasn't changed much since its conception. It's very effective. It's very efficient. Why change something that isn't broken? Now, with 10 minutes, there is no way I could go into coding today. So if you want to learn about the SQL language, you have two people here you can follow on LinkedIn for great content. You have David Langer. He hosts Dave on Data, an online analytics training website, as well as a YouTube channel. So you can get a lot out of him. He is a firm believer in pronouncing it as Sql. So we are enemies in that department. And then as well, you have Eric Weber, who also posts daily on SQL. So note those down. And Kate, you can stop sharing my screen if you want, and I will just close up. So personally, I'm a huge SQL fan. I love it. It's like a problem-solving game for me, and I find it very intuitive, and it's open for anyone to learn it, and it's a great language to get started on. It's great as a beginner language. And keep in mind that every company out there has some sort of SQL database. It powers almost every website and map and an app that's out there. So if you learn it, your skills are very far-reaching. So to wrap up, like I said, SQL is here to stay. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's a core skill. So long live SQL or Squirrel, as we want to say. And thank you very much for tuning in today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was amazing, Christina. You have a lot of great comments and questions coming in. A lot of votes on SQL, so not SQL, but SQL, and definitely have a couple of squirrels that came in just to be funny. But a question for you here from Priscilla. She's asking, where can I practice SQL if my actual job doesn't allow me to practice it?
Oh, that's a good question. So what I would recommend is checking out, like I said, I'm a big reader, so I always go back to books. Look at what books are out there. There's one that's called SQL in 10 minutes a day. And a lot of times the books come with recommendations on where you can practice, because it's obvious you can't practice code in a book. So what I would recommend is checking out what books are on the market. And I always like having one physically to read, see what it recommends, and then, use it to practice on your computer.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, a lot of other similar questions just coming in about where can people practice. I think they see the value. A lot of people were surprised at some of the statistics you shared in a good way. And yeah, SQL is old like gold. I have a personal question for you here. So should each data scientist know SQL? Like, should every data scientist know SQL?
I think so. I mean, I don't think there's an excuse for you not to. It's also, like I said, a very intuitive language. So there's no excuse not to, especially if you can learn something more complex like Python, R, Java, whatever it is. You can easily learn SQL. And in my experience, at least, I studied my master's in big data. And we, of course, covered SQL very heavily just because it's so important. So most data scientists will be exposed to it. And if they are not, I would highly recommend taking the time to learn it then.
Okay, awesome. And then Eric LaRoque, he's actually from Perdago. He says, what is great about SQL is that it's so universal and supported by almost every database. You can't lose by learning this. SQL all the way. There's another way. SQL. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Well, Christina, I want to thank you so much for your time. This was a great talk. Thank you for packing it all into 10 minutes. And guys, follow Christina on LinkedIn, her #BookAWeek challenge. I always love all the books that you're reading. I've read a couple of them. I don't currently read a book a week, but maybe after the conference, I'll have a bit more time. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you
so
again,
much, Kate.
Christina. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and show you, your guys are going to love this. This is from our sponsor, Rivery. I'm going to go ahead and play that 1-minute video for you.
Having fun with Kate and DATAcated, but don't you wish you were right over here on a peaceful beach in Jamaica? Absolute freedom. Hey, what is freedom anyway? Well, here's a secret. Freedom begins with control, and unless you control your data, it will end up controlling you. This is why you need Rivery. Rivery is an ELT platform to control all your processes, including data management, data orchestration, and data automation. It's fully managed, cloud native, and code free. Yeah, man. Go to rivery.io right now and experience real free. Yeah, man.
All right, so that was a message from rivery.io. Definitely go ahead and check them out after the conference. I thought that was really funny and memorable. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next speaker, Ben Taylor. So Ben Taylor is the Chief AI Evangelist at DataRobot. He studied chemical engineering. He worked at Intel and Micron, worked at a hedge fund as a quant, was the chief data scientist for HireVue, co-founded and more recently sold a deep learning AutoML company called Zeph to DataRobot. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring Ben Taylor up on stage. Hey, Ben.
Thanks, Kate. I'll start by sharing my screen.
Yep, go for it.
There you go.
I'm going to go ahead and present that. So you're talking about producing data diamonds from data swamps. And I'm going to go ahead and hop off and give you the virtual stage here.
Okay. Thanks, Kate. So when I put this talk together, I didn't make the Rihanna connection, but now it's pretty obvious. So of course you wanted to end it with Sky, but it's data swamps. Start my timer here so I'm good on time. So I've got an embarrassing story that I haven't shared before, and I love sharing embarrassing stories, especially the ones that make me look quite stupid. So I remember walking to college, walking to class, and I was a young college kid, and a van pulled up, and they had some speakers to sell. And I think I ended up, I'm really embarrassed to say this, I think I bought some speakers for $300 that I didn't need. And it ended up being a scam, or they weren't worth that. And the funny thing about that is, why the hell would I buy speakers when I'm a poor college kid and I don't have a speaker problem? And along those lines, it reminds me of the big data, and obviously big data offered value for a few companies, but it feels kind of like a scam. So why did you build out that Hadoop cluster if you didn't have a big data problem? And I remember giving a talk right during the big data hype cycle when it was spinning up in Orlando, where I'm speaking to a crowd of HR professionals about big data and Hadoop, and I'm thinking, I don't think there's anyone in this entire industry in HR that needs big data, because I can solve a million resume problem on my laptop, and most companies don't have a million resumes. So the promise of the data lake became a data swamp for many companies. And the funny thing about nerds is data swamps are still pretty cool. And so talking to different companies and different people in the community, do you have 5 nodes in your Hadoop cluster? Do you have 10? Do you have 15? At the hedge fund, I worked on a cluster of 600 GPUs. And is that better? It's kind of like having bigger tires. Doesn't mean you're actually going to really go anywhere faster necessarily. If anything, it might create problems. But I think it's so funny looking back on the big data hype, because the pitch was you can answer all the questions. Well, what questions? All of them. All of the questions you didn't know you had, you can answer them all. And it's kind of like diamond mining, because if you ask enough questions, so if there's enough business intelligence hustle, you never know. Maybe eventually you'll ask the right question and it'll be transformational for your company. Yeah, it's so funny now looking back on this big data hype, but there's a big problem. So why did the data lake become a data swamp for a lot of companies? You have to remember that humans made this. So we underestimated the data quality value. And I've personally seen this. I've worked with Salesforce data where time series columns will jump into another column and different labels have inconsistencies, missing data. It's almost like you are dealing with a hoarder house, but with multiple tenants that are changing over time. And that is what we're trying to build value from. And I've also dealt with unstructured data where you have humans that are labeling images for many, many months. And then you find out months later that they were only saving one label, or they weren't saving the data at all. So they're not in a position to get a return on that human investment. And the important thing to remember is humans, we're not totally terrible. We don't lack attention, and we're not always sloppy, but maybe we are sometimes. But we also build tools. We've been building tools for thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of years. And so what tools can we use to help us with these data swamps? And so I've got three key things to share with you. So this is Paul Francis. He is my periodontist, and it's essentially a level 2 miracle, but I found him by having a climbing accident, and he was going to fix my teeth. Turns out that he was also a big mountain climber, and so we started doing these big wall climbs together. And so before you go off and climb, you have a mission, and you need to think about the mission. You don't build up these data lakes for the sake of building them, and you don't use AI for the sake of AI. If you do that, it's destined to fail. So instead of going from the data to value, you need to go the opposite direction. You need to go Z to A, mission first, data second. What is the mountain you're going to climb? And sophisticated data scientists talk about converting statistical metrics into KPIs, but now with COVID and kind of the urgency of the market, KPIs need to come okay. They have to become OKRs. So what are the urgent business missions that you're trying to satisfy this quarter, and how can you use data to do that? So Z to A, storytelling for the win. A lot of us have seen talks about black box models. How can we trust them? And that was totally the case years ago. We lack the storytelling capabilities inside these models, not just in the deep learning models, but also in some of the tree-based models. We didn't have the prediction level insights that we have today. And what we're finding with storytelling is you can take a massive data set, and this can be using supervised learning where I'm chasing a label, but it can also be unsupervised learning. And using deep learning, reinforced learning, you can actually produce encodings, unstructured data becoming structured. Think of BERT encodings for text or pre-trained ImageNet encodings for image. And if you cluster these encodings, they can do some unbelievable things. This is an image I've shared many times when I've given talks, where by building a CNN classifier for faces to predict which country you're from, if you cluster that encoding layer, it'll actually begin to produce the continents. And this is something that a subject matter expert, they'll see intuition in this. They'll agree with this. This will make sense to them. And I have found time and time again that this type of clustering with your data, you can find data duplication issues, and you can find issues that you had like a default image or like a missing image if you're scraping data from the web and there are missing image defaults, they would show up immediately with this type of clustering. So that's a way for you to kind of get a captain's view of the data that you're dealing with. And the other thing that I have found that's been very, very useful, this is the last point, is this idea of continuous learning acceleration. So if I'm dealing, so a few thoughts here. If you tell me that humans have been dealing with this data, I'm actually going to assume the worst. I'm going to assume that they struggle with label accuracy. There may be bias in the data, maybe even an unconscious bias in the case of hiring or in the case of appraisals that's being applied there. And so I want to inspect the data. I'm not going to take your word for it. I want to go take a look, do random sampling of the labels and see if it really is that good. If I don't have any labels, I can pay strangers to label my data. So think of Mechanical Turk or other services online. The issue we find with that, it still offers value for some companies. They really don't care about your data. And so it's not just one human looking at an image or a video clip and labeling it. A lot of times you have to do voting. It's 3 humans and you're going to take the best 2 out of 3 votes, or we see cases where it's sometimes higher. It's 7 humans, you're going to take the best 5 out of 7 votes. And so my recommendation is, sure, you can use a human labeling surface like that, but you can also use AI to do labeling yourself. So I've surprised some people because I've been able to label very large data sets from scratch in a day. And the way I do that is I start by building a weak model. So I might manually label 1,000 images or 1,000 clips and then build a very weak model. But a weak model is better than no model. And as soon as I have a weak model, I can begin to sort my data set. And I can begin to look for areas where I suspect to find misclassifications. I can begin to correct those. And I can also put in some thresholding where I'm automatically assigning labels. And what happens is you begin to retrain the model, retrain the model, retrain the model. And then when it comes to the human review, instead of reviewing one observation at a time, which is very time consuming, so to label 1,000 images, it might take several hours to do that if you're doing it, methodically. You can then kind of graduate to this accelerated review where you're looking at a 10 by 10 mosaic of images, or a 10 by 10, you're starting to pack animations if you're doing video, or you're adding audio files together. That way you're listening to random samples very quickly, not just one at a time. So if you follow these steps, I'm sure you will all shine bright like a diamond when it comes to mining your data swamps. Always assume the data is bad, find a problem worth solving, and use AI to accelerate yourself and augment yourself as you try to deal with these data labels. So I'll stop there. And here's a QR code to find me on LinkedIn quickly, and I'll go back to video.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. I was also trying to remove your screen. That's why there was a lag. I love your presentation. You have so many comments, and I agree about your ability to tell stories about all this stuff, and people really, really agree with everything that you're saying. There's a comment here from Cindy Hawson. She's saying she agrees mission first, or ideally business outcomes first, then what data is needed to support that. But if an organization is new to analytics, experimentation or bottoms up with data is also okay if you time box it. What are your thoughts on that?
I love this question by Cindy. So I think data science is kind of promised we're really good at programming, math, and we're good at domain expertise. And I've realized through trial and error that we are not that good at domain expertise. And so sometimes the people that need to be in the conversation aren't even invited. It's a technician. It's someone, maybe they're not a VP, maybe they're not a director, maybe they don't have a PhD, but they've worked this process for 10 years or 20 years. And so I love talking to underwriters and insurance or people that are actually working the process every day because they have fantastic insights. And so identify the problem and then find the humans that have been manually working that process the longest and interview them and take a lot of notes. And I found that's very helpful.
Awesome, thank you. And back to your storytelling, you told me your teeth story, and a lot of others have, I guess, heard your teeth story. Not sure if they've all seen the picture. It's a very graphic picture. We won't pull it up here for fear of scaring people. But yeah, you got hurt pretty bad, and at least you met your what's his name, Paul Francis. Thanks.
Yeah. So for people listening, I fell 20 feet with a rope in my mouth, and I bit down on it. So I lost at least a tooth. You could argue a tooth and a half. And I met one of my best climbing partners afterwards. So
awesome. Let me just see what. Okay, there's a question here. What is an OCR? You mentioned that our KPIs need to become OCRs.
Oh, OKRs. So those are, sorry, OCR, that would stand for optical character recognition. Maybe that was my brain misfiring. So OKRs, that would be quarterly goals. So KPIs are great for business, but it's really good to align with management and executives. What are they actually being held accountable to this quarter? What is the quarterly goal that they're trying to hit? And can your data problems and models help with that? And so it brings kind of the spirit of urgency that I think is lacking from a lot of data science conversations when it comes to delivering value.
Okay, thank you. Nicole's asking if there will be a recording of this. Yes, there will be a recording of the full 4 hours on YouTube and on LinkedIn. This will stay on LinkedIn. If you register for the conference, you actually receive the recording. So if you're not registered, go to storybydata.com/DATAcatedconference. I think today is going to be the last day I ever get those words out of my mouth. I said it every day for the past 2 months. And there have been also a lot of questions about where to get this t-shirt. If you guys notice, all the speakers are wearing a t-shirt. So I could share a link to that. But if you go to Story by Data, there's a merch shop for all this DATAcated stuff out there. All right, let's see. Comment here from Monica. Always assume the data is bad. This is great. Yeah, I love that last point. If humans have touched it, chances are something's bad.
Well, to pull on that, people don't realize that humans have an accuracy. There's always an accuracy assigned to any human process. I think sometimes we forget. We think it's 100%. But until you audit it, you don't know. And that's a very scary thing.
Yes, absolutely. Question here from Satish. Could you please suggest tips to become better storyteller from your experience?
Practice helps. I just read a book called Stories That Stick that I really liked. That would be an entire conversation. I think, Kate, you care a lot about this topic as well. Practice is great. Details matter. It allows you to connect with other humans. So it allows the emotions to connect with your audience rather than the rational argument that we typically go with.
Yeah, I mean, I think storytelling you can read books all you want, but I think listening to good stories and then practicing telling stories is probably the best way to get better at it.
Yeah.
All right, Pedro says there is normally no such thing as bad data. It's bad data parenting. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I think it's not the data's fault. It's the people that were managing it. But yeah, it's shocking how bad things can get out of control when you look inside a Salesforce database or inside a data lake where people really didn't care. I love the parenting example because it's almost like you have kids running wild in an organization because there was no accountability. And then they have dreams and ambitions about using AI. And when the AI consultants come in, they're terrified and horrified of what they're seeing.
Yeah, I can totally picture that. See, it goes back to your great data storytelling. You painted a picture here. LinkedIn user, so somebody private, is asking, what other recommendations do you have to assess quality of data besides clustering?
Oh, I forgot to mention. So with deep learning, it'll actually show activations. So if I'm looking inside audio, I can see temporal activations in the spectrogram. If I'm looking at images, it'll actually show me which areas of the image are activating. And
Mhm.
there's famous examples of this where you can catch issues. Like a classic one I just saw is an image was saying that this was a wolf and not a husky dog. And when you look at the image, you see it's activating on the snow. And that's where a domain expert would say, wait a second, why is it activating on the snow and not the dog's face? And that goes back into the training set that, wolves tend to be in snow, and the AI was dumb and it took advantage of that. So I really like spatial activations.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. And we'll take last question here from Frederick. How much UX research should be applied to data visualizations and data storytelling?
Probably a lot. And this is probably more a question for you, Kate, on the
I was
visual
going to say as much
storytelling.
as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, as much as possible. And I've learned this the hard way. The best thing you can give is a single number with a $sign. If you can't give that, give one number that they understand. If you can't give that, give a 3-bar chart or something that's very simple. And I've made mistakes of building custom plots where you're so proud of yourself, or look at this amazing visualization I built, and it just confuses your audience. They have no idea what they're looking at and they feel dumb, and it doesn't help the conversation at all.
Yeah, I get that. They're just people are just saying thank you, and they're loving your session. The comments are going so fast; it's literally hard to like. I'll read a really good one, and then like 10 more come in. I'm like, okay, well that question's gone now. But then I want to thank you so much for being here today. At this point, we're going to close out the first session, which is data governance and wrangling. We're going to move over to data literacy and data visualization. So thank you again for being here. And yeah, I mean, a lot of great comments coming in. So go on LinkedIn and check those out. We couldn't get to most of the questions, unfortunately, due to our very, very limited time here.
Well, thank you so much, Kate. Great conference. I've loved the other speakers so far.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our very next speaker, who's going to kick things off for us in the next section on data literacy and data visualization. So Kirk Bourne, you might have heard of him. Dr. Kirk Bourne is the principal data scientist, data science fellow, and an executive advisor at global technology and consulting firm Booz Allen Hamilton. He focuses on applications of data science, data management, machine learning, and artificial intelligence across a wide variety of disciplines. He previously was professor of astrophysics and computational science at George Mason University. Prior to that, he worked for 18 years on data systems for NASA space science programs. He has been named consistently as a top worldwide influencer in the data and AI space since 2013. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring Kirk up on the virtual stage, and looks like there might be a video connection issue. Kirk, we don't see you.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, we just can't see you yet.
My webcam is on. Funny things happen when you are live, don't you know?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, the good news is we're 2 minutes ahead of schedule. So if you wanted to go ahead and either try it with your phone or different device, we can do that as well. In the meantime, let's go ahead and look at our comments. All right, let's see. We've got, let us start with data viz and data literacy. Yeah, this was one of the more popular topics when people were signing up. And I asked, which session would you like to attend? Al was checking you out at DSGO. Kirk Bourne, if you hear us. Raymond saying on visualization simplicity. Ravit, so happy for Kirk Bourne to be here. He is the best. I agree. I've actually had the pleasure of listening to Kirk Bourne live a couple of times before we had to, before COVID, before we had to do everything virtually. I'm thinking, Jordan, since I see you in here, maybe since Kirk is, oh, no, never mind. Kirk's here. Kirk's live.
Oh, that's magic. It's called clicking the right button. Push the stupid button, Kirk.
Kirk, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to hear your, simple lesson in data literacy for data science. We see the shirt, Kirk. Thank you so much for wearing your DATAcated shirt. I'm going to go ahead and pop off screen. You have your 10 minutes. If you want to share screen, I can help with that. Click on share screen and we can pop up any slides that you want to share.
I will share screen.
Okay, go for it.
If I can control that, I will do that.
Yes.
If there's a problem, well, you'll tell me.
I'll be right here backstage. So if you have
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Kate. Tremendous conference, tremendous organization skills, and just the fun you've created for all of us in this community is just fantastic. All the topics have just been spot on this morning, all around data literacy, data storytelling, SQL. I started life as an astronomer, did a lot of data analysis, and I was introduced to databases 30 years ago when I joined NASA. And I didn't know what a database was because 30 years ago it was only in the financial world. And so SQL became my language of choice, and I've always instructed my students in SQL. So, I'm going to try to share my screen here.
Yep, click on share screen, say yes, and then select an application window or Google Chrome. It depends what you're using. And then just go full present mode. You might not see us once you start.
All right, I think I got some power here. Called screen share power.
Oh, you're up. There you go.
Wow. It worked. I always like fun things like this. So there I am in my DATAcated shirt. So hope you got yours, everyone. I'm so excited to be here to talk about data literacy, one of my favorite topics, along with data storytelling, which we just heard quite a bit about. Kate and I have discussed data storytelling many times, and so have some other people who are going to join this conversation very soon here, like Miko Yuk, one of our greatest common friends here. So I'm going to give you a very simple lesson in data literacy, because data makes the world go round. Data is everywhere, and of course the world who's not here on this phone conversation also needs to know this stuff besides us. And you might think, well, why does a data science conference, a community of data scientists, need a lesson in data literacy? Well, I always love simple lessons, and this simple lesson goes a long way, which I think helps all of us. So I love data, and I want to talk about how data literacy is a way of thinking about numbers and measurements of things. But before I jump into that, I just have a little snapshot of characterization of my background. So my background is astrophysics. You see this big fat book in this bottom left part of the screen there, statistical astronomy. When I was in undergraduate, actually in physics, my goal was to get into astronomy. And one of my professors went to the University of California at Berkeley, and he was a statistical astronomer. And I never really thought a whole lot about statistics, except he showed me this 600+ page book here. And I said, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can handle that. But anyway, it was pretty impressive. And as the years went by, I went from basically doing computational models of colliding galaxies to getting into more data science and statistical stuff. So I think it's come full circle for me now. But during those years, I was managing a data systems contract at NASA, so that my employees, my group gave me this boss, a little cartoon, a little toy on the left you see there. There's my data duck in the middle of on top of that book. If the data quacks, it must be data. My kids gave me that little world's greatest dad. But of course, I have to mention Captain Kirk, because my entire professional career, Kirk as an astronomer, Kirk at NASA, I was always called Captain Kirk. Oh, well, I couldn't get away from it. So there you are. So a simple lesson in data literacy. How do you spell SQL? Just kidding. Thanks, Christina, for the little discussion this morning on SQL. That's not the lesson. Just kidding. But I couldn't help but throw that in there. So anyway, so I use this particular little image here when I talk to public audiences about data literacy. And I tell them that data literacy is a way of thinking about numbers and measurements of things. And I have them look at this and stare at this, and oftentimes it leads to some laughs in the room, and I hope you're laughing a little bit here. They look at this and they finally figure out this doesn't make any sense. You know, there's three different numbers here, then somebody added those three numbers, and those three numbers are completely different types of things. Obviously, I mean, we can recognize that immediately. Population of the town, this elevation of the town above sea level, and the year the town was established. It didn't make any sense. But then I thought more about this, and I realized as data scientists, we need to think more about our numbers. And sure enough, when you look at this sign, I just basically came up with 7, and there's probably more. 7 sort of very important data science concepts that we need to know as data scientists are revealed or exposed by looking at this sign here. And so we could actually do something with this. We actually can do something with this sign, even though when you first look at it and you see these 3 numbers and you say, what could I possibly do with three so completely different numbers with different units measured in different ways and so forth. Well, the first thing you do is to realize that everything is data. So that's sort of my first message, is just being cognitive and realize that we're collecting information about every process, every product, everything in the world, every behavior, whether it's our online behaviors or cyber behaviors or whatever we're doing. Everything is data. So being cognitive, recognize that even odd numbers like this, they're still data, and you can do something with data. And that to me, it's really just a concept which I call having your first date with your data, otherwise known as data profiling. So I encourage people always to have that first date with your data, explore your data. That is to say, look at the features you have in your data set. What are their units? What are the ranges of those units? The min and the max values. What are the dimensions? For example, population is number of people. The elevation above sea level in this case is feet. The year established is obviously a year, a number measured of time. And so data profiling is saying, what kind of data I have? What are the properties of the data? What can I do with these data? So the first thing we try to do is we try to think about, well, what good is this sign? What good is this information on this sign? And what can I do with it as a data scientist? And so one thing you can do is you can start thinking about, gee, these are characteristics of this town. These are properties, okay, as features, as we say in data science. These are features which are characteristic of this town. And from a set of features, we can build a feature vector. So the feature vector in this case is these three variables: population, its elevation, and the year it was established. And maybe this set of numbers don't make too much sense in those units. So we have to graduate from just talking about the feature vector and the features to actually making this computable. So as data scientists, we must focus on computable data, something we can feed into a model. Now, it doesn't have to be numeric. As we know, we can do, for example, association analysis or link analysis, market basket analysis, if you're familiar with that, and even Bayes theorem, where you're basically just applying probabilistic values to discrete items which aren't numbers. So it's still computable. So how can we make this computable? Well, one way you can make this computable is you can just realize that these things represent those three characteristics of a town, and we can do something with it. For example, we can normalize it. So our feature engineering is not just making it computable, but making it computable in a sensible way. That is, since these are all different units, let's normalize them to a common unit scale. And so one of the most common ones you can use is basically a 0 to 1 normalization. So if we take each one of these, for example, population, and we can look at all the populations of all the towns in this country or in this region or whatever the geographic area you're studying. Let's just say you're looking at a particular country, all the towns and cities in the country, just normalize from the minimum population town to the largest population town on a scale of 0 to 1. Then you can do the same thing with elevation. Look at all the elevations of all the towns in the country and find the minimum and maximum elevation of the towns and normalize those numbers from 0 to 1. And from the year established, well, the easiest thing to do is maybe something like the age of the city. So basically the current year minus the year established, and that gives you the age of the city in years. And then you can normalize, once again, min to max could be normalized 0 to 1. So we basically had taken something which was basically a fairly silly, uninteresting looking side, but something that was sort of humorous, to actually something you can now compute with. You have a feature vector, which are three characteristics of towns in this country, and the numbers are all on a unified scale, so you can compare feet above sea level to population to the years to the age of the town on a normalized way. That is, anything on a 0 to 1 scale, doesn't matter what the units are anymore. So the next thing you might want to do with this, that if we're really comparing with other towns, is we want to use some kind of distance or similarity metric. And that becomes easy when you remove the units, because now it's a mathematical thing. You don't have to carry units around with you. It's all 0 to 1. So distance and similarity are very key concepts in almost all of data science, right? So we talk about clustering. It's all about knowing the distance. If we have K nearest neighbors classification, it's all about distance. Okay, so similarity and distance is a very common concept. And so no matter what feature vector you use here, you can start doing things with it, with cosine similarity, Manhattan distance, if you're familiar with that, Euclidean distance, LP norm. There's a variety of things that you can do with this. And so ultimately, you may want to do some real live classification, classify towns based upon something like K nearest neighbors. So we measure these parameters in this three-dimensional parameter space, all 0 to 1. So we essentially have a data cube a cube with X, Y, and Z all between 0 and 1, and you just place all the cities and towns in the country inside that data cube. And if you have some new town, you want to say, what is this most like in that space of population, feet above sea level and year established, or age? You can look at the most similar towns around a given point, and then sort of classify it based upon a k-nearest neighbor algorithm. But you also could do k-means clustering. That is, you could say, what are the sort of the 3 main sort of categories or clusters, or 10 or 5 or some number like that of types of towns in our country. And so you can do a clustering algorithm against that data cube. What's more interesting also is that you could actually do some meta learning here. So we've gone through this whole process of playing with our data, profiling our data, creating feature vectors and so forth. But we actually can do some some meta learning. That is, well, maybe we should add some additional features. For example, we can use, since we have numbers here, we can find other numerical quantities that describe town. For example, the sort of the average level of education in a town, or the average salary of a job in such a town, or things like this. Okay, so we can start adding more features to say, do these additional features help our clustering analysis make more sense? Do the clusters become more meaningful? Instead of using these 3 features, we can add, maybe have 10 features, and then we can have more reliability in terms of using this set of numbers to classify or to cluster our towns. So that evaluation and feedback works great on feature engineering, but also works great on distance and similarity, in that if you choose a particular distance metric, how do you know that's the right way to define distance in a k-nearest neighbor or a k-means clustering type of technique? And so by varying the distance metric that you use, for example, cosine similarity or Euclidean distance or other ones, you can, again, look at the clusters that you create, look at the classifications that come out of these different algorithms, and say, when I classify a new town using k and n, or when I cluster the groups and create these clusters with k-means, do these groups make sense? You can identify clusters by varying the distance metric as well as varying the features, and actually come to a more sensible outcome at the end. So you started with something that doesn't make too much sense, this new little sign, and hopefully you recognize how, just since everything is data, you can actually start doing things with data, no matter what form it's in, even something that was basically intended to be a humorous sign. We actually can start doing something really serious with our data, just by recognizing the concepts that are revealed in the process, and just have fun with your data, because we all love data, and I certainly love data. And that's all I have to say this morning. Just love everything that Kate is doing. So thanks for everyone being here. Thanks, Kate, for this great opportunity.
Thank you so much, Kirk. You have so many positive comments in the feed. I actually, there was a question that I thought was funny, because someone asked, why is there a total, right? Because that's the whole point of your presentation.
Exactly. That's the point, is that you look at the sign and you just laugh. It's like, that doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, of course it doesn't make any sense. That's the whole point. It's just humorous. And I would use this in my talks and get the humor out of the people. Then I say, well, wait a minute, there's something serious you can do here.
Yeah, absolutely. I always learn so much from your talks, and there are a lot of comments here about your excitement. I agree. You always bring so much energy on stage, even the virtual stage that we're on. A question here from Tom. He's asking, is there a difference between data profiling and exploratory data analysis? So if profiling is the first date, what's exploratory data analysis?
Well, the exploratory data analysis might be sort of the last few items on that list I just gave you, right? So the data profiling is what types of data do I have? What are the formats of the data? Do they have dimensions? What are the range of those dimensions, min, max? And then once you do that, you can start looking for outliers and anomalies in your data. So data profiling is all about just that personal, up close and personal with your data, right? The first state. The exploratory data analysis is now the feature engineering, right? And the testing of different models with your data. You can explore your data. So that exploratory data analysis is what data sets and what features in the data set produce value. We've heard a lot about that this morning. I'm a huge proponent of all the things we've already heard this morning. I mean, focus on value, focus on mission, focus on outcomes. Don't focus on the algorithms. Don't start talking about fancy deep learning neural networks and activation functions with your client. They have no idea what you're talking about. I start with this sign, and I capture their attention immediately. Then I start talking about some concepts that we just talked about here, and all of a sudden they get it, right? So data storytelling is very important here. So data profiling is nothing more than just finding the warts and the cool features and the uncool features in your data. But exploratory data analysis, for me personally, just basically means finding the value, finding the parts, the features of the data that will bring value to the use cases and your clients.
Awesome, got it. So if data profiling is the first date, exploratory data analysis are the few dates after. That's when you...
Yeah, something like that.
Awesome, thank you. Question here from Manal. How much statistics is needed to love data? I love how he phrased that question.
Well, I think it was who Ben said he loves sharing embarrassing stories. Is that true?
Here's stories. Yeah, he shares a lot.
Here's my embarrassing story. I never had a course in statistics in my life, but I taught statistics at a university as a professor. Why? Because I learned it in the practice of what I was doing. Mm-hmm. All right. So and I'm not saying don't study statistics. That is not what I'm saying. There's a lot of value in studying statistics, but you can learn what you need in practice. I learned Bayes' theorem as I went along. I learned a lot of things in statistics as I went along. I mean, one of the greatest tools that astronomers use for decades, and I never could quite understand it, but I got to use it myself, and that was the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test. KS test, that they call it, because we're always trying to say, is this population different from that population? So it's a two population test. Are these drawn from the same two samples drawn from the same population, and it makes no assumption about the structure of the distribution. That's called a non-parametric test. So as soon as I learned that, I got a book on non-parametric statistics. So if you want to learn some statistics, I would suggest start with non-parametric statistics, because you'll fall in love with data again when you get into that, because it's letting the data tell you about the data. And I'm a big proponent of let the data talk to you. Okay, the data whisperer is great. I love Scott. But the data, if you let the data do the whispering, you even let the data do the shouting at you. Yeah. So one of my mantras to everyone is always find the model in the data. Let the data become the model. And so anyway, I'm rambling on here, but statistics is all important. But you can learn it as you go. I think in a lot of cases, don't slough it off. It's still important to learn it, but you don't necessarily formally have to learn it in a course. So much so that, like I said, I even taught it at a university. I never had a course in it.
I was going to say, you can just teach it. You don't even have to learn it. Just go and teach it at a university.
Well, another one of my mantras, the best way to learn anything in life is to have to teach it.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. And Dr. Kirk Bourne, thank you so much for being on the DATAcated conference. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and play with another giveaway. So thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and play a video from Ben Jones. He's giving away data literacy courses. Definitely check this out.
Hi, I'm Ben Jones, CEO of Data Literacy over at dataliteracy.com. For the past couple years, we've been leading teams through in-depth assessments, and we've been offering virtual and on-demand training for individuals and groups looking to build fluency in the critical language of data. I'd like to say a quick hello to all of you fabulous DATAcated conference attendees. We're big fans of Kate and all the interesting discussions she ignites and facilitates, and we hope you're enjoying her conference so far. We're proud to sponsor the event this year, and I'd like to let you know about our giveaway for 3 winners, along with a special deal for everyone. Now, this past August, we launched the Data Literacy Fundamentals on-demand course on our brand new learning platform online, as well as on our client's own learning management systems. As of today, the course has been made available to over 40,000 people worldwide, so we're very excited about that. The course helps you build a strong foundation by walking you through 8 lessons that include instructional videos, quizzes, a workbook of exercises, as well as an overarching course project to ensure the content really hits home. Explore questions like, what is data? How do our minds make best use of it? What are the different forms of analysis? How do teams work together to turn data into value? And many more. To enter your name into the drawing to win one of the free individual course seats, just type data literacy into the LinkedIn comment field right here. And we'll be right back to announce the winners along with our biggest discount code yet for each of you to use at checkout.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Ben. So as he said, if you want to enter the giveaway, simply write the words data literacy in the comments. All right, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, Jordan Morrow. So he's the global head of data literacy at Click, where he helps individuals and organizations realize their data and analytical potential by strengthening their data literacy. Jordan leads Click's data literacy program across various channels, which has seen a rapid rise in engagement and is now at the forefront of industry thought leadership. Jordan is the co-author of Data Literacy for Kids and is working on his latest book, Be Data Literate. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring Jordan up on our virtual stage. Hello, Jordan.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't see the shirt, but I can hear you.
It's there, I promise.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
You're going to tell us all about how to teach others to be data literate, because I think what most of our audience here today are extremely data literate, and the issue is having that conversation with others. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the stage. I'm going to hop off, and it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And first, I do want to give a shout out to a couple people on the program that I've seen or that I've seen in the comments, and that's Ben Jones. You just saw his video, but I see him very active in the comments, and Valerie Logan, two pioneers in this field who have great resources on data literacy, and their programs are stellar. I highly recommend, if you're not connected with them, to please connect with them. And it's always a pleasure to be able to share the stage with so many great speakers, especially Kirk. He and I go way back. He's one of the first believers in me when I started data literacy years ago. So for me, I think Kate and I go back for years now, and I'm very appreciative for all the times and opportunities she gives me to share some thoughts on data literacy. And particularly today, I want to focus in on that key element of helping others get on board. This is actually one of the top questions that I get from organizations and individuals. How do we get the rest of the organization to buy in? It's very easy to get a group of people who already believe in data, that already believe in analysis, statistics, whatever it may be, to say, yeah, we should be running a data literacy initiative. But when you look at an entire workforce, I'm going to bet 90 to 99% of them do not fall into that boat. It's not their cup of tea. It's not necessarily what they do. They went to school for backgrounds in different areas besides data and analysis. And so the opportunity becomes ours to be a vocal voice on how to empower data literacy throughout an organization. And I was having a conversation the other day with what was basically a chief learning officer, one of the large consulting firms in the world. And he brought up a new term that I want to use today. There's a difference between upskilling and up knowledge, is how he described it. We always think about data literacy and empowering others from this mindset that we're upskilling everybody. Well, first and foremost, we have to understand that data literacy is not a one size fits all. Not everyone needs to learn the exact same skills within data literacy. Now, let me define how I'm using the term data literacy. It's that ability to read, work with, analyze, and communicate with data. So it's got 4 key characteristics that individuals and organizations can use to get better with analysis, with that end goal being how to make smarter decisions utilizing data. And when we think about those 4 characteristics, again, not everyone needs to learn the same. Not everyone needs to build their skill set in the same way. So one of the first things we need to do when we're trying to drive a data literacy initiative, and not just data literacy, but data and analytics, data visualization, all these programs, the first thing we need to set up is what exactly is it we're trying to accomplish. You know, if I were to go march around to every organization that I've spoken to around the world and just say, this is what you need to do it. Without starting around the why behind it, I'm going to lose people very quickly. So when I work with organizations and individuals to drive that data literacy side of things, I always start with the why. What is it we're trying to accomplish, and why are we trying to accomplish that? Some of the things that I teach organizations is to help them understand that a tool is not a strategy. A tool is an enabler. So if you're going around trying to up-knowledge people, which is that first step in bringing awareness, I call it an awareness campaign. We have to understand what is it we're trying to accomplish as an organization. When we've set those expectations, as you can imagine, it is much easier for us to then find the ways to do it. Historically, what I've seen is organizations are buying into tools and technology and then force fitting that on people. And that's going to be a problem because a lot of people are like, why do I even have this? Do I even want to use this? So with this audience, like Kate said, this is a bunch of data literate people. These are people who want to use data. Start off by helping people understand what it is we're trying to accomplish, and maybe most importantly, why we need to do it. Once we've established that pattern throughout an organization, we've brought awareness to that, we then can put a strategy in place. We know what we're trying to accomplish. Now what strategy do we need to put in place to make sure that happens? This is where we start to look at. The third step is arming people correctly. What tools and technology are in place to help people accomplish this? So we have this expectation out there. We then need a strategy. That strategy will include, this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is how we're going to accomplish it. These are the tools that are needed. Yes, we need data quality on the back end. We have so many good people that are attending this event. The classification side with Susan, the Scott, the data whisperer, data classification, data quality, all of these things. That's one aspect of the tools that we need. But then we do need to democratize the data in some manner. Again, if 90 to 99% of a workforce are not data scientists or data analysts, they have to be armed correctly. Tableau, Qlik, Power BI, Alteryx, all these tools are there to arm the workforce correctly. So once we know the why, we then know the what. What are we going to be doing? We then get to the how. How are we going to be doing this? For data literacy to succeed, not only do they need the right tools in place, but they need the right learning in place. If the majority of people are not going to school for these things, that's a problem. So we have to teach them data. We have to teach them how to be comfortable with it. We have to teach them how to make decisions with it. We have to get people on board. You know, Ben, we just saw that commercial right there and the wonderful giveaway he's given. Valerie's program is great. I have a program. These resources are all here for people to consume. But we also have to make sure that it's closing the data literacy skills gap. We can go around all that we want, excited that data and analytics is here, that we have all these tools, the data quality is improving. But if people don't have skills to use that data, none of that will matter. So we have to create programs, holistic approaches of assessing people. I saw that question come through the comments on measuring data literacy. It's not just about measuring data literacy, although that is a great thing that we need to do. We should start by assessing individual skills and comfort in utilizing data. If we can assess an individual's skills and comfort in utilizing data, we will open up so many doors and channels for us to succeed. By saying, hey, you're at this level, let's give you appropriate learning, we are going to make people more comfortable. And I think that right there is one of the key things we need to be doing. Not just sending out, how many of you listening, and you could comment on it or whatever, how many of you like getting an email that says, you have now new mandatory training? Does anybody like getting that email? Unfortunately, that's how a lot of programs are rolled out. You have new mandatory training. We all have busy jobs. So don't just say you have mandatory training. Sit with them. Understand their skills, their capabilities. This is the difference between up knowledge and upskill. Some people will need to fully be upskilled in their data literacy skills depending on what they're doing. On the flip side, though, some people just need to be made aware of what is happening and why. And then the final piece, so those are 4 steps. Let me go through them real quick again. What expectations are you trying to achieve? Create a strategy to achieve those expectations. Arm the employees correctly with the appropriate tools. Close the data literacy skills gap. And then the final piece, and it might be one of the most important, is establish the right culture of data-informed decision-making. I get asked that question a lot. What is the number 1 roadblock for data and analytics success or data literacy success? And I think people at times are expecting me to say data quality or I can't get access to the data. All of that has nothing to do with that. It is the culture of the organization that you work in. If that culture is ready and willing to absorb data, ready and willing to understand why data matters, and maybe most importantly, when that organization culture has the skills and desire in place to make data-informed decisions, it becomes much easier to roll it out. It's the same thing. How many of us set goals and resolutions or whatever the case may be around fitness or different things? If we're not willing mentally to take it on and make the changes that are necessary, it's going to become a bigger roadblock. So one of the first things I do at an organization before we even get to those steps is I do awareness campaigns. We do workshops, 45 minutes, an hour long, bringing to light why data literacy matters. When we can put those things in place, then it's much easier for the first 4 steps to happen. And then we can create and bring around the entirety of the culture to make these smarter decisions. And again, the resources are out there. You know, I only have 10 minutes today. So connect with me, connect with Ben, connect with Valerie. There are pioneers, Kirk, people in this that are speaking, Miko, connect with us. We all have skills. We all have things out there. And I find the holistic approach with the group of people, with as many of us as possible, there's so many learnings and so many things that can be done to learn. So with that, Kate, I'll put it back over to you. and see if there are any questions.
Yes, Jordan, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for your talk. I think when we played Ben's commercial, LinkedIn comments exploded with hundreds and hundreds of data literacy comments. So that was awesome. Yes, I agree with you. No one really gets excited when they get an email with mandatory training, because chances are they already have 30 other mandatory trainings, and it becomes kind of a, okay, here's another thing I have to do that's not relevant to my job. So it's very important to communicate that message correctly and show the value of data literacy to organizations. We do have a lot of comments and questions. We don't have too much time. So question here from Sneha: what are the skills that you believe someone should build to be able to be data literate?
Yeah, so I think there's two sets of approaches to this. So when I get asked that question, I think a lot of people are like, do I need to go back to school to learn coding? Do I need to go back to school to develop statistics? I tell them, no, that's not where you start. You're going to run into roadblocks very quickly. Two things to start with. One, find an area in data and analytics that you find exciting. If that is coding, wonderful. If it's data visualization, wonderful. It's data storytelling, wonderful. It's the same thing. I go back to fitness a lot. If you're trying to create a fitness regime, you're going to do something you like more often than you do something that you don't like. So find something you're enthusiastic about, and then start with what I've coined as the 3 C's of data literacy. Be more curious. Okay, ask questions of everything coming to you. Ask questions of the things that excite you in the data world. Question and challenge the data that is presented to you on an ongoing basis. I'm fond of saying I want to create a world of data skeptics, not data cynics. Okay, data cynicism is the negative approach. Data skepticism is a healthy approach to data to question it. So be curious, be creative. The power that you possess to use your brain to be creative, data storytelling, data visualizations, all of that, bring your human creativity to the data in front of you. And then the final piece I would say is critical thinking. We're living in a world where critical thinking is in short supply right now, in many different cases. We need to get better at literally sitting back and pondering on the data. So the first thing is find something that excites you and dive in, and then practice the 3 C's of data literacy: curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking.
Awesome. And on that note, thank you so much, Jordan. I hope you stick around for the rest of the talks. Great stuff. Stay DATAcated. I'll talk to you soon. All right. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and play video. We're going to hear from our sponsor, Click. What a coincidence. We just heard from Global Head of Data Literacy from
By leveraging ClickSense's active intelligence, we understand our customer better and increased our service offering for our customer experience. We're not going into meetings talking about differences in data. We're talking about the decisions we have to make.
In the past, we've had data everywhere, and you haven't had really one source of truth. Click allows us to see that larger picture.
When it comes to data and analytics, we want to address real problems. We had a 90-minute minimum connect time down to 80. We were able to drive that key metric because we could monitor it.
Click allows us to give the intelligence that people in the field need right where and when they need it.
Data is at the heart of what we do. We are using data to analyze and identify the source of patient diseases.
It's crucial for us to have active intelligence to optimize our operations and drive product innovation.
All right, awesome. Click, leading with data. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and introduce 2 additional speakers. We have Miko Yuk and Anna Ria, who are going to join us from BI Brains. So Miko Yuk is the founder of BI Brains and the BI Dashboard Formula methodology, where she has trained thousands globally on how to strategically use the power of data visualization to enhance the decision-making process. She's the author of Data Visualization for Dummies and was named one of the top 50 analytics bloggers to follow by SAP. She's joined by Anna Ria, who is a business intelligence data visualization designer and developer. Her current focus is building mock-up dashboards for their clients' data visualizations. All right, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and bring Anna and Miko up on the stage. And
hi, Kate.
I've got your slides up here as well. Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for being here. Miko, I know you're here with us, and we're going to stay off camera, yes?
Yes, sorry, I'm not feeling too hot, so I don't want to drain the energy, but I am going to do the intro and then let Anna go ahead. She's the one that created the Analytics Design Guide, so I think everybody is going to be in for a treat.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to hop off the stage and let you guys take it away.
Okay, awesome. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Miko Yuk. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Kate, for having me again. Today, we're going to give you guys a quick but very powerful session. And we are going to discuss how to standardize your analytics using the Analytics Design Guide, which is a 55-page free guide that was actually created by Anna. She's our head designer and Power BI developer. And I think you guys are going to absolutely love this. As I said, I'm just going to do the intros and then let her do her thing. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I think you guys are going to love this. And it's all 100% free. All right, next slide. Okay, I'm not sure where our slides are. Okay, perfect. Okay, just a quick bio about me here. Sorry, a little bit of a delay there. So we don't have a lot of time, but I think some of you may know me. As Kate said, I wrote the Database for Dummies book. I was featured also in a book that she wrote called Disruptors. Many people know me for our Analytics on Fire podcast, and I've spoken at a few places that you guys might be accustomed to. I mean, might be familiar with. However, the important part about my bio is that the analytics that we brought together is basically a combination of hundreds of different analytics that we have built over the year, probably thousands at this stage. So again, I think you guys are going to really enjoy this. And with that said, let me hand it over quickly to Anna, and she's going to take you guys to the design promised land. Go ahead, Anna.
Anna, you're just popping in to say you're on mute. I'm going to leave again.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're loud and clear.
Great. That sounds like a phone commercial. Sorry about that. Okay, well, hi everyone. My name is Anna Ria. I am super excited to be here with DATAcated. Yay, thank you, Kate, once again. So a little bit about me. You already know my name is Anna Ria. I am a dashboard designer and developer. I'm very story driven, and that's what we do here at BI Brains. And I've been working with BI Brains for about 5 years right now. My job role is to design and develop dashboards, but my superpower is taking OW dashboards and giving them that wow factor. Now, I've done this for multiple different projects and for multiple different clients, and they were all very happy. However, since we're talking about the Analytics Design Guide, Miko and I worked really hard to put this together because we've taken all of our years of experience and created this wonderful guide on how to standardize your work and what you need to do to create the best dashboard that you can ever make. So the whole purpose of the Analytics Design Guide is to help people standardize their analytics, branding, and scale their work, their teams, by setting up these specific guidelines that we've put together. So once again, we highly recommend that you do so, that you go to our website and download it. It's absolutely free. And believe it or not, when we first put this online, we had over 600 downloads in one day, literally one day. That's amazing. So, and that was a few years ago. So what's inside? We have about 6 different sections. And of course, I'm going to just go ahead and show you some of the things that our clients really like to see and other people love to see about it. So when you get started and you download it, it's going to start off with basically showing you what are the different resolutions that you can use when building your wireframe before they even become dashboards. And then we move on into how to apply different parts of your dashboard systematically so that it can turn out really perfect. So one of those sections is how to apply your fonts. And we give specific details of every little section of what you need to do so that you don't miss a thing. Everything is basically preset up for you. You just simply need to follow those instructions. So we even have a little bit of best practices that our clients really tune into. And it helps them to focus on what's important and stay as professional and neat as possible. One of the fun parts of this guidelines is how to apply colors. And it gives also another set of specific details of how you can just go ahead and set up your colors when you are creating your own template. Rag colors, for instance, red, amber, and green. We discuss this a lot at BI Brains. We only use rag colors for specific parts of your dashboard so that it doesn't turn out like a very happy, funny looking Christmas tree. You need to stay as professional as possible. So these colors are very important, but only in small aspects of your dashboard. Color usage, of course, we go in further details with the Analytics Design Guide on where you should place certain colors. And that way it will not take over the information that's on your dashboard. And of course, here's another example of that, of how you should use colors in your charts as well. And we go into real details, and it's really fun. Many of the people who have looked at the Analytics Design dashboard, Analytics Design guidebook that we've created, they come back with wonderful feedback stating that they really love it, it's really fun, and it has really helped them in standardizing how they should go about creating their dashboards. For example, best practices for colors. We teach you how to limit certain colors, that way you don't overdo it, and only use, as I spoke about earlier, rag colors for specific parts of your dashboard to highlight certain information. Here's another great section, icons. I know people love icons, but sometimes they can overdo it. Our guidebook shows you exactly how you use your icons and what type of icons you need to choose. That way it doesn't overwhelm your dashboard and your users can just focus on their information instead of getting distracted all the time. Trust me, icons are beautiful, but you never want them to be distracting from your actual data. So I also give different examples of why you use certain types of icons and why you just stay clear of the more favorite ones. Just because they're lovely doesn't mean they need to be in there. Okay, so if you want to download the Analytics Design Guide, please visit our website at bibrains.com/resources/downloads, or just go to our BI Brains website. We have a lot of fun and free, informative, different guides and resources and different tools that can help you along your way. Okay? Do you have any questions?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Anna and Miko. I love that presentation. You have a lot of great comments and questions coming in. A lot of questions of where do we get this? Where do we find this analytics guide? If you've registered for the conference, I can send a link in the next few days with my follow-up email. We can include the link for people to go ahead and get that guide. Let me see. There is a question here from Thomas. Let's take one question. How would you approach the creation of database standards for a company?
Well,
Anna, okay, I'll let you take it. Go ahead.
Okay, well, you can chime in too, but first and foremost, please download our Analytics Design Guide. Second, so that means go to our website and go to our resource sections. We have a lot of informative tools, free tools that you can use to first standardize your work on and get those steps on how to begin, how to what's your middle part and what's your end. Since we are very story driven, you know that a story has a beginning, middle, end. We take lots of great care and detail in giving you certain resources ahead of time. So if you want to know how, go to our website. We have all the information right there so that you can get more than what you need. And then if anything, reach out to us at info@bibrains.com, and then we will just get on call with you as a one-on-one, as a probably even a quick tip of what you need to start out by doing, okay?
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much again, Anna and Miko, for this session. At this point, we're going to move on to Ajay Khanna. So I'm going to go ahead and hop you guys off stage. Feel free to stick around in the backstage. Thank you so much, Anna. Nice to meet you. It's the first time we met. So nice to meet you. All right. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ajay Khanna. He is the CEO and founder at Telius, where he focuses on helping companies bring together all of their data in one place, enabling asking questions with a search interface, surfaces hidden insights and trends. Ajay is a tech innovator with a huge passion to build new technologies and disruptive business models. All right, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring Ajay up on stage. Hello, thank you so much for being here.
All right. No, thanks, Kate, for having me. You guys can hear me. Yep.
Yes, I can hear
All
you.
right.
I can see you.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Ajay Khanna. I'm CEO and founder at Tellius. Excited to be part of this show. Kate has put together an amazing show, great energy, some really awesome lineup of speakers. I heard some of them this morning from Kirk, Cassie, Christina, some amazing talks here. So let me start with who is Tellius? What do we believe in? So all right. So what do we believe in? Yes. So Tellius. So we are on a mission to make everyone in the organization a data analyst. So we built a decision intelligence platform focused on enabling business and the data analyst teams make faster, smarter decisions from your business data. So organizations are collecting massive amount of data, and they want to use this data to make data-driven decisions. But when we talk about the journey from data to decisions, that involves not only understanding what is happening in your business, but why things are changing and what you can do to improve those outcomes. So let's take an example. Let's say if you're head of marketing, you want to understand what you can do to improve your campaign conversion metrics. You have to first know what's happening with your campaign conversions, how are they doing. But once you figure out, let's say if one of the campaign conversion isn't doing good, why is it not doing good? Is it because of a channel not performing well? Is it a messaging or something else? And once you figure that out, then you can actually make some tweaks to your campaign to be able to improve the campaign conversion metrics or so. So let's talk about how this process works today and why it leads to what we call as the reporting hell in the organizations. So there are four main reasons for that. So let me start with the first one. And the first one being the current reporting process is very manual and time consuming. So it's interesting that while the data has grown exponentially in the last 2 decades, however, the way we access information and we analyze data hasn't really changed in the last 2 decades. It used to be dashboards on desktops, then became dashboards on a client server scenario, and then became dashboards on cloud. But guess what? The way we access information is still dashboards. So that has to change. That's not how we do anything else in a day-to-day life. Let's say if you want to book a flight or buy a pair of shoes, you typically end up actually using some kind of app. So you have some kind of search bar, you type a question and be able to make a flight booking or buy a pair of shoes in a matter of a minute. So something has to change in a data analytics process. So the second process or the issue we see is the process we use to when we have some kind of why question. So when you want to dig deeper and let's say understand why campaign conversions are changing, there isn't any easy way to do that. So with complexity of data increasing, there could be hundreds of columns and there could be billions of records. So you can't possibly run those billions of combinations manually. With the current approach, it's just not possible. So this system is not scalable. This process isn't scalable when you have to understand why things are changing, why your campaign conversions change, why my market share changed. And then there's a lot of talk about machine learning, AI in the organizations. But the question becomes is, okay, if there are hundreds of open source tools out there, why are organizations not using it? Why are business teams not using it? Well, the unfortunate reality is that these machine learning AI techniques, most of these tools are built for the advanced users, and the business teams don't fully understand that. They're really hard to understand and consume for the business teams. And then what we see is that with the BI stack, mostly business intelligence tools, which we use here, they're built 10 to 12 years ago. They use some old architecture, which means that you can't possibly take billions of records or terabytes of data and be able to run the analysis on top of that. So typically you have to aggregate that data to some million rows, tens of million, maybe 100 million rows or so. But let's say you answer a question, then the business individual comes in and say, you have another question. Now, what does that mean? You have to go and do another aggregation, and that process just continues and that cycle continues. And that's kind of what's the combination of this is what's leading to what we call as the reporting hell. So how do we fix it? When we look at, and I'm going to take you back in the memory lane. So some of you, if you remember doing a flight booking in early 90s, you probably remember that. And some of you who aren't old enough and haven't gone through the flight booking experience in early 90s, you just have to trust me. People did make flight bookings before Expedia or Travelocity were born. They did do that. So I remember this process driving down to a travel agent place, and then travel agent will make a call to someone, and they will punch in some codes in regards to the so I think I got distracted here. So they will punch in some codes in regards to the airport codes, and then figure out, okay, this is the options you have, and be able to get that going. And what we did is that now that process took days to be able to go in that information. And sorry, actually, I have to shut down this thing. So the way this whole experience worked at that point of time was that it took days. It took me about a week to be able to get that flight booking done. Now, of course, things have changed in the last 2 decades. Now you can go actually, get your phone, use some kind of consumer app, and be able to make a flight booking in a matter of minutes. And so this is kind of great that you can make a flight booking or buy a pair of shoes in a matter of minutes. But it's very ironic that if you have to find information from your data, it still takes weeks and months sometimes to be able to do that analysis. So what do we do? So how do we fix that? So we took a step back and said, okay, we need to build something from ground up where we can actually do this analysis. We collapse this analysis process and provide a modern user experience for the business teams to be able to ask those questions very easily. So we are bridging what we call as the last mile problem, and the last mile problem of getting insights in the hands of business teams. So you have a question in mind, you don't have to wait for the analyst. You can ask this question in a Google-like interface, and the system will scan through billions of records across all the data and find that answer, create a chart on the fly, and give that back to you. The system also provides you suggestions and recommendations as you type, because you may not remember all the column names in the system. Then once you find what happened, you have a question on why things change. So now to be able to say why things change, the system can also go through, run millions of combinations, and be able to find that root cause analysis on why things are changing, and be able to provide that information to you rather than you manually looking through it. And then you can also go and be able to, let's say you want to target some customers to improve in this particular example, let's say market share. You can actually create segments. You don't have to wait for the data scientist to be able to create these segments. You can do that in a more self-service manner also. So this flow I just talked about from what, why, how is only one of the questions. But guess what? The data is coming in every second, every minute, every hour. Lots and lots of data is coming. And then you have to do that analysis. And collapsing this analysis process is the key to put this information in hands of the business teams. So I know Kate advised me, is like, are you sure you want to just show a glimpse of the tool? But I believe in, seeing is believing. So I wanted to show this tool and be able to say, how does this work in reality? So when we go into Tellius, you can see a Google-like search interface like you will see in any kind of consumer application. It provides you some suggestions and recommendations on, as you type. So you can ask questions. Let's say you come in and you ask a simple question like, okay, I want to just know how things are doing, by revenue is doing by state. And the system will actually understand it's a chart, which is, more of a mapped view, and be able to create that on the fly. Of course, you can modify this chart to what you want. You can actually look at revenue by channel. You can say, you don't have to even type this thing exactly. So let's say if you didn't type it properly, the system will still find the closest match, and you can actually compare different channels. Let's say if you want to compare these channels in South, for 2019. So you can actually, this can apply these filters on the fly. You can actually say you want to do a different kind of resolution. So the system can actually do a trend chart automatically, because we are trying to break it down by a quarterly resolution. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of asking questions. You can mistype columns. You can compare things. You can apply filters. There's a lot of things you could do. And of course, we continue to evolve this experience to accommodate different kind of questions there. Now, and this answer which came in, it wasn't across one table. So this information actually expands across multiple tables. Now, in this particular example, it's a customer information, orders information, page views, products, sessions, and few other information there. So that's one part we can see. But the fun starts when you see something change. Then it's like, okay, I want to know why things change. And that's where you spend a lot of time, manually drilling down. But in case of Tellius, you can actually go and be able to click this button and say, why don't you figure out what happened, which maybe make this actually particular revenue go up by 233% in this particular quarter. So I have some examples here. So the system actually creates a narrative, natural language narrative on the fly. So you can actually go and look through this information on why things changed and create a narrative with some information and sorted by the impact. So impact meaning out of all the variables, all the information, which variables have the biggest contributor, biggest impact to this particular question you are asking. So these are not random anomalies. These are more sorted by the impact of the target variable you're looking at. And you can actually do, your exploration does not have to stop here. You can keep asking questions. Not only look at why things change, but also maybe you want to compare social versus paid search. Like, why social went down and paid search did not go down. You can actually go and maybe compare those. Like, what is the reason between the performance of these two? So some example of these would be like someone trying to figure out maybe two offers, why they are different. And the system figures out maybe certain age group isn't doing well or certain region isn't doing well. And then be able to even create some of these models. You can actually create segments of customers you want to target, and then be able to continue that investigative process. And we also even create some of these machine learning models on the fly. And eventually, you want to go ahead and view this information in some kind of WISPAD. We call it a WISPAD, which is like a dashboard. So you can still put that in a view which you can consume and say, what are my customers at risk, or other information there. So that's is kind of a very quick overview of the flow of how we see this evolving. But I think in summary, what we see is that we want to enable organizations with a smarter way to answer these why and how questions, and basically democratize the access of data to everyone in the organization there. So that's it on my side. I'm going to share my screen.
Oh, I stopped the sharing. Ajay, thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. People are commenting that they absolutely love the demos. They really, I guess they were hoping for a demo today. You guys got your demo. So a lot of great features. Thank you so much for showing us that. Several questions came in about where people can learn more and what are they looking at, right? So this is Tellius. Where can people go to either get a trial or kind of play with this?
Yeah, so they can go to tellius.com. I think I forgot to show my email address and Twitter handle, but I'm sure you can find it on tellius.com. There's also a free trial option on Tellius. So if you go there, there's a free trial button right on the top there. You can click on that and start a free trial to just check it out and see if it really fits what you're trying to achieve there.
Absolutely. Thank you. We have, we'll get through a couple of questions. So Supriya is asking, is it like a Google search on data? Because that's what it looks like. You typed in some questions. You got some cool charts and answers. You got the whys, and you put it all in a WISPAD. It looks really cool.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. We want to call it like a Google search for your business data. So you can actually start with asking questions across all your data. I think that's the beauty here, that you don't have to think of aggregating the data before. You just have to say that, okay, these are all the tables there. You certainly have to define the schema, that how they are joined. But once you do that, then the business teams, the analyst teams can just start asking questions pretty much like Google. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Question here. It says from LinkedIn user, so we don't have the name, but what's your favorite feature of Tellius? I'm sure that's difficult to answer, but let's hear it.
Yeah, it's hard to pick my favorite feature, but actually I would go with the feature which we call as the Auto Insights feature. So the Auto Insights is my favorite feature, is that, yes, you can start asking questions, but I think I give this analogy that, let's say you're trying to book a flight, and somehow I keep coming back to the flight booking arrangement or the analogy, but let's say you're trying to book a flight. Let's say if there was an interface which tells you all the flights, it told you how many flights leave from DC, how many flights land in LA, but didn't tell you, which flight actually gets you there faster, cheaper, right? That would be useless information. So my take is that you can do all the exploration which you need, but then the insights actually tell you the actionable changes you need to make to improve your business outcomes. I think this whole talk is about improving outcomes, and that's what we feel that feature enables you to do.
Awesome. Well, Ajay, thank you so much. I think at least at this time, I'm going to hop you off the virtual stage, and thank you guys. Go ahead and check out tellius.com, get your free trial. And I'm going to announce the winners that we were talking about a few sessions back. So thank you again, Ajay. And I'm going to put up a banner here that announces the winners. All right. So here we go. It's a lot of multitasking, if you can't tell. Okay, so the winners of the data literacy contest are Sneha Verma, Brandy Beals, Daniel O'Morrow. And there's a code that everybody can use here for 25% off. If you go to Ben Jones's courses, it's DATAcated 2020. It's really easy to remember. Okay, at this point, we're wrapping up the track 2 of data literacy and data visualization. We're moving on to data strategy and leadership. And our first speaker today is Bernard Marr. So we're going to kick off this third session with Bernard Marr. He's an internationally best-selling author, futurist, keynote speaker, influencer, and strategic advisor to companies and governments. LinkedIn has ranked Bernard as one of the top 5 business influencers in the world. He's authored 18 best-selling books, and I'm sure he'll come out with 18 more by the end of this year. He pops them out like cookies. He's a frequent contributor to the World Economic Forum and writes a regular column for Forbes. Bernard has about 2 million followers across different social media platforms where he generously shares content every day. And a side note, he's also a really nice guy, and he continuously gives back to the data community. So I'm super excited to go ahead and bring him on here today. Here is Bernard Marr. Hello.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much for organizing an awesome event. I obviously have the t-shirt on as well, as you can see.
Yes, thank you so much for being here, Bernard. I know the first time I came across your name was when I read your book, Data Strategy. And you're talking about that topic today of how to develop a data strategy. I won't take up more of your time. I'm going to hop off stage, and it's going to be all yours.
Thank you so much. As I said, it's a real pleasure to be here with you. This is a community that I love and is very close to my heart. What I want to talk about is how do we actually approach a data strategy. And I don't feel that this is something that organizations do particularly well at the moment. And for me, it has to start with the fact that data has become or is now the #1 business asset for any company, and it has to be treated like this. This is really important. And sometimes we get caught up in this hype. We've heard this before today when one contributor was saying about big data. I don't actually like the name big data. For me, it's much more important that we talk about the right data. And what the right data does is that it is fueling this new intelligence revolution. I believe that this 4th industrial revolution that we're in at the moment is an intelligence revolution that is fueled by data. So what electricity and oil and other resources were in the past, we now have data as the key resource. And for me, one of the most important messages I want to send out today is that your data strategy has to be derived from your business strategy. I find that lots of organizations, when they develop a data strategy, they go around and say, how can we use data in our organization? And then you come up with a little brainstorm, and then you develop a data strategy, or you look at all the data you already have and how you're using it, instead of starting from a strategic perspective. Another mistake I see organizations fall into is that they simply apply a data strategy to an outdated business model. So what is really important is that whenever you decide to design a data strategy, that you take a step back and you actually say, okay, is our business model still relevant? And for me, there's this 80-20 rule that I talk to organizations about, where I believe that 80% of the use of your data should be strategic. It should be driven by your biggest strategic needs. And 20% you can experiment with and you can use for other use cases. But for me, the majority should be focused on your biggest challenges, the biggest problems that you're facing, the biggest strategic initiatives. And in order to help organizations go through this process, what I've done is I've developed a framework to help organizations think about this. And in my book, Data Strategy, and also my new one on artificial intelligence called The Intelligence Revolution, I talk about these frameworks. And for me, instead of starting fresh, I think there are 5 key areas where we need to explore how we can use data better in our organizations, and hopefully they will be useful. So for me, the first use case is where we use data to improve our decision making in our organizations. And we've heard Again, a lot of this on this topic already today. The second one is where we use data to better understand our customers and understand our markets. The third one is where we use data to deliver more intelligent services to our customers. The fourth one is where we look at more intelligent products, which you can combine. So it's about what you're delivering in the customer value proposition, whether it's services or products, and you need to make them more intelligent. The next one then is that we use data to actually improve our internal business processes. And the last one is where we use data as an asset that we can monetize in our organization. So if we look at across those 5 sectors, I can now spend days giving you amazing examples of how organizations do this in practice. But just a few examples and a few tips. So when it comes to improving decision making, what I find is that currently people are simply bombarded with data. And we don't really get the balance right between the self-service element, where we give people access to great data and hope that they will make better decisions, and the more curated dashboards that we have circulating in our companies. And for me, this is the analogy I often use is a restaurant or a chef, where you differentiate between a self-service restaurant and a fine dining experience. And for me, the self-service one is where we create these, where we give people predefined things that they can then use to help them answer their questions. And for me, sometimes we fall into this trap of simply saying, okay, let's go for the self-service route because this is easiest. And what I find in practice is that lots of organizations feel that their people are getting lost because they don't have necessarily the data skills, they don't have the understanding of what questions to ask and how to then use data to help them answer their questions. So for me, we need to spend a lot more time on hand-holding, and companies like Walmart have done this extremely well, where they created data cafes. They're actually physical data cafes, now virtual data cafes, where people can come in and talk to a data scientist and say, okay, this is my challenge, this is my business question, how can I go about helping, how can I use data to help me answer this question? And this is a great example. Companies like Shell, I've recently designed their data strategy. They are now putting roles in place of data translators, people that sit between the data function and the data science team to bridge the gap, to, again, facilitate this dialogue. And then on the curated side, for me, this is a bit like going to a fine dining experience. We should never overlook this. For the most important strategic needs in your organization, I believe we need to put more effort into curating beautiful dashboards that really tell the story, that use a mix of data visualization and data storytelling. So, and they're basically serving beautiful dashboards that we don't have to worry about assembling ourselves like in a self-service restaurant. It's more like the fine dining experience. When it comes to understanding your customers better, the second use case, for me, this is about understanding that data has a lifespan. This has never become more relevant and more real than in this current pandemic situation, where lots of companies realize actually the data we had 12 months ago is no longer relevant. Consumer behaviors are changing so rapidly. Situations around the world are changing very quickly, even within countries. Where different lockdown rules apply to different parts of the world. So companies need to have real-time data, and this is vital. And also using new forms of data. Sometimes we are too blinkered and look at what data we have in our own organization, instead of thinking, okay, what data can we use beyond our boundaries? Can we use satellite data? I've recently worked with a construction company that uses now satellite images to compare their own progress on their sites with competitors, something that they simply couldn't do before. The next one then is to think about your value proposition. And this is where lots of organizations need to rethink their business model. So we have had Netflix, who is a great example of a company that uses data to really understand consumers and then deliver a better and more customized service in terms of their recommendations. And we have seen companies like Disney responding to this, changing their business model with Disney Plus to have the same access to customers. But this is, we see this in healthcare, we see this in so many different aspects where companies are now making smarter products and producing smarter services from smart toothbrushes to even smart toilets. I believe that very soon this intelligence will be a major contributor to any product and any service that every company will offer. The next one then is we need to rethink how we run our business. So this is your internal processes, where you need to think about how can we use data to run our processes better, to become more efficient and more effective. And a great example comes from a salmon fishing company, Cermaq in Norway. They wanted to improve their operations, and they said, okay, salmon fishing is a really old industry. You basically feed the salmon, they eat the food, you wait until they've grown to the right size, and then you catch them. One of the issues is health. You need to monitor them. So in the past, they basically sampled them. They've taken a few salmon out, made sure there was no algae and no diseases on them, because they spread very easily in these sea pens. And that was it. And then they realized, actually, we can use data to make all of this better. And one of the greatest examples of AI and data is that they're now using face recognition for salmon. So they've connected the sea pens via 5G to their servers. They're now running a camera that feeds the fish, and they will now recognize whether a fish has eaten or not. Because in the past, the stronger fish would grow faster, the weaker wouldn't get as much food. Nowadays, they can completely control this environment where the salmon would come once a pallet with food. The system would then recognize whether they have already been there, because they can recognize the spots on their face to see whether the salmon has already been there or not, and then they issue a pallet accordingly. And we see companies like Unilever that now completely automate the entire recruitment process. So this is key. And then the last one is monetizing your data. This should always be the last part. For me, the order I've outlined is probably the order you need to think about this. So first decision making, then understanding your customers, then rethinking your products and services, then automating your business, and then you think about, okay, now we have lots of data, can we use this in other ways? So I've recently worked with a number of telecom companies, and we created complete new departments that are now selling data, location information. So for example, before the pandemic, when we still had the opportunity to go to football games, for example, they could partner with the teams, for example, to then say, okay, if you are going to a match in this city, where have you come from, where do you go before, where you go after, and you can now sell anonymized data, which is extremely valuable for them that they simply didn't have access to before. So for me, starting with those 5 areas, exploring the use cases for your business, and then you basically define the use cases you want to focus on. And I suggest you pick 2 or 3 really strategic ones to start with, and maybe 1 or 2 quick wins where you can make a real impact on the business to demonstrate success. And then you define each of these use cases. And I actually have a free template that you can get on my website that helps you define a use case where you think about, okay, what does this mean in terms of where do I get the data from? How do I analyze this? What are the ethical and legal issues around the data? What is the technology I need? What are the skills and competencies I need? And what are the organizational cultural elements in terms of change and creating the right organizational environment? And for me, if you do this, if you pick your key ones, starting with the key use cases, you will design an extremely powerful strategy that will really drive the value of data in your organization and help you to actually deliver on your strategy, rather than have your strategy and your data strategy pulling into slightly different directions. So hopefully that was useful.
Absolutely, Bernard. Thank you so much. You're getting so many comments about what a great speaker you are, how many insights people got. People are literally taking notes, and they're asking you to repeat things, but we unfortunately don't have time for you to repeat the talk. The talk is recorded for whoever wanted Bernard to repeat his 5 uses. You can watch the recording after, but I do have some reactions to your talk. So I love the Walmart data cafes. I think that's a great idea, and I love how they've been able to go virtual post-COVID. the free templates. What's the site where people can get the free templates that you were?
Bernardmar.com.
Bernardmar.com, easy enough. And the face recognition of the salmon? Seriously? Come on.
This is one of my favorite examples of ever, because it combines data science, 5G, artificial intelligence, machine vision. I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. So we do have time for one question. Question from Francesco. Communication is the key to help organizations fill the gap between people who are not data literate and people who are. How do we fill this gap?
Yeah, for me, it comes down to a few things. So when we recently designed the data strategy in Shell, they realized they have always been a really data-driven company, but they realized that they had a few issues, that they needed more people to be more data literate. And what they did is they created, first of all, they created a community around data science in the organization using their internal social tools. So they created a community. Then they created customized courses. So they partnered with Udemy and Coursera to actually create customized courses for data literacy within Shell. The other thing they did is they created, also very similar to the Data Cafe, they call them hackathons, where they regularly have either virtual or physical meetings where they get data science teams and business teams together to really look at what the business challenges are. And then they also create these data translators. And for me, the data translators are such an important role in organizations that they want to really be serious around data, that span the business and the data science function. And this is how you communicate. And I think lastly, you need to have the executive support and sponsorship and buy-in for all of this. And if you have all of these factors in place, you will definitely create this constant conversation and have this dialogue.
Awesome. All right. Well, Bernard, thank you again so much for your talk. Whoever's watching us live, go ahead and follow Bernard, be his 3 millionth follower on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I think you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're basically everywhere. Thank you again for your talk, and hope you can, stay at least backstage or watch the rest of the sessions. But thank you again for your time for a great session.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved today, and I'm definitely going to stay on. So thank you very much, Kate.
Okay, awesome. All right, at this point, I'm going to let's hear from our other sponsor, Tellius. You heard Ajay today, but here's a quick video that tells you a little bit more.
Hey everyone, I'm Alvin from Tellius. I hope everyone is enjoying the opportunity to hear from and connect with the greater data community at the DATAcated conference. Here at Tellius, data analysts and business teams tell us all the time that they want to get faster insights from their data, that their data is too complex, and that it's impossible to create a report for every request that comes in. So we built a software application so that you can accelerate and simplify analysis from unaggregated data from across all your sources to enable everyone to become a superstar data analyst in your organization. In Tellius, you can ask questions in natural language, such as, why did the conversion rate on Instagram drop last week? Or, compare loan default rates between California and Florida. Or you might see some trends on your dashboard that you'd like to dig further into. From there, the AI-driven guided insights engine automatically analyzes the billions of combinations of data points underlying your target metrics, then evaluates and ranks the most relevant findings so you can easily explore the top drivers of business performance, understand the reasons why metrics are changing, and identify segments to target to improve desired outcomes. This is not your typical BI or visualization tool. Tellius has a high-throughput compute engine for ML-driven analysis, a distributed in-memory architecture that scales elastically to dynamic workloads, and a usage-based pricing model where you only pay for resources consumed. Visit Tellius.com where you can start your free cloud trial with just a few clicks. We hope to connect with you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Alvin from Tellius. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, John Thompson. He's also a really great author. He's the author of Building Analytics Teams, which an international technology executive with over 30 years of experience in the business intelligence and advanced analytics fields. Currently, John is responsible for the global advanced analytics and artificial intelligence team and efforts at CSL. Prior to CSL, John was an executive partner at Gartner, where he was management consultant to market-leading companies in the areas of digital transformation, data monetization, and advanced analytics. Before Gartner, John was responsible for the advanced analytics business unit of Dell Software Group. That's awesome, John. I'm a big Dell user, so I'm going to go ahead and invite John Thompson up on stage. Hello, John.
Hi, Kate. How are you?
Are you as dedicated as I am? Wait, what?
I'm dedicated.
We're wearing the same shirt.
Great program, Kate.
Well, John, thank you so much for being here. I know you're going to talk all about managing high-performance teams for maximum efficiency and employee engagement. So I'm going to get out of your way and hop off the virtual stage. It is all yours.
Thanks, Kate. Hello, everybody. So happy to be here, coming to you from snowy Chicago. Yes, we've had snow the last 2 days, so it's winter has arrived in the U.S. Midwest. So I'm inside and warm and happy to be here with some of my most favorite people in the world: Kirk Bourne, Bernard Marr, Christina, who I can't pronounce her last name, so I'm sorry about that. But Christina, it's Sql, not squirrel. That's not even an option. But anyway. I'm going to take the discussion in a little bit of a different direction from data and data literacy. I'm going to talk about advanced analytics teams and managing those advanced analytics teams. As Kate said, I wrote a book 3 years ago. I wrote a book for C-level executives on analytics called Analytics: How to Win with Intelligence. And that was for those executives to understand who to hire, what to invest in, what analytics teams could do. And then in June of this year, I released a book called Building Analytics Teams. And that book was targeted for people who are managing analytics teams and who are building analytics functions in organizations. But what has happened is the community, this wonderful community that we're all part of, has embraced that book and has taken it much further than I ever expected it to go. And I've been contacted by students from around the world, people who are just starting out their career in data and analytics and AI, and they're trying to understand, what does a high-performance advanced analytics team look like? And the reception has been fabulous. The questions that I'm getting from them on LinkedIn and through other media has been wonderful, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, is an advanced analytics team, what it is, how to manage it, how to bring people together, how to structure it, and those kind of topics. So my first premise, or one premise that's probably a little bit different than other people are thinking about, is that, in my view, an advanced analytics team is a creative team. It's much different than a development team. It's much different than many of the other teams that people have been on throughout their careers. Often we look at a development team and we say we're going to implement an ERP system from SAP, an enterprise resource planning system, or we're going to implement a CRM system via the cloud through Salesforce, customer relationship management, or those kind of systems. And they're very straightforward. They do have some variation in how they operate, but most of those are very linear processes. And I don't see advanced analytics as being linear in most of the cases that we work on. So you are getting some data. We've heard a lot about data hygiene, trusting data, engaging with your data, profiling your data, exploratory data analysis. All that is relevant. There's no doubt about it. But we often find that we don't have the right data, or we have the wrong theory, or we use the wrong algorithm, and we have to iterate multiple times to get to a point where we find a solution that is going to actually bring some business value to the team or to the business. So in my opinion, an advanced analytics team is dramatically different than any other team, because at its core, at its base, it's a very creative endeavor. So, that's the first and foremost thing that I always talk about. Let's move on to talking about how to structure an advanced analytics team. In the world, I think of many things as two poles. I think of one end of the pole as being artisanal team and made of artisans. Another team is more of a modular team. I tend to start out and build artisanal teams or artisan-based teams. And that's where you take a data scientist and they have responsibility for everything. They own the building of the charter. They handle the stakeholder management. They obtain the data. They integrate data, feature engineering, modeling, all those different kind of things. They do it all. In a modular team, you may have a set of people who do data acquisition, data integration, feature engineering, modeling, those kind of things. I tend to lean more towards an artisan team where you have a group of people who are highly experienced, highly paid, that work through those projects in that manner. Some people ask, oh, are these teams, is one approach or the other more expensive? Not really, because you'll have fewer people on the artisanal team, but they're highly paid. You'll have more people on modular team, and they're lower paid people. You can also have a team where you have the artisanal team doing modeling and feature engineering, and then you have a modular team doing the data integration and data acquisition. So you can have a hybrid team as well. So that's how I structure and usually have seen high performance teams work very well. And then people often ask me, well, you have these high performance people, how do you keep them busy? What kind of workload do you give them, and how do you manage them? So I use what I call as a personal project portfolio, and each of my data scientists have 2 major projects, and those projects could be anywhere from 2 or 3 months to a year in duration. And then they'll have 3 or 4 minor projects. And then, as we all know in our daily jobs, people show up and ask us for quick analytics for the board meeting, or data for this or data for that. So they have to field those kind of questions and requests as well. So the way it works is that each data scientist has this personal project portfolio. So as we all know, as data scientists, maybe the data we need, we don't have, or, we've heard from a number of people, Bernard mentioned this, Ben Taylor mentioned it, Kirk Bourne mentioned it, that we as data scientists need to work with subject matter experts in the line of business. Maybe your subject matter expert isn't around. Maybe they're on maternity leave, or they've taken vacation, or you just can't get to them. So you need to give the data scientists the ability to have the accountability and the responsibility to manage their own workload. So they can time slice between these major projects, these small projects, these service requests, so they can have a sense of ownership and agency that what they're doing, they control and they manage on their own. So the personal project portfolio is a great way for you to give your data scientists autonomy and the ability to work on their own and build their own analytics, and also fail. We have weekly meetings where all the data scientists come together and talk. Collaboration is a hallmark of a healthy data science team. So all the data scientists on my team are expected to come to the weekly Center of Excellence meeting and share their successes and failures. So sometimes it'll be a problem in data management. Other times it'll be an issue with performance. They're trying to do something in R or Python, or they're having an issue, as Kurt talked about, a data normalization issue. So we all talk about that, and we all put our cards on the table, and everybody has ideas and everybody shares, and we all try to get better together. So I think that works out very well for a high performance analytics team. Now, one of the things that I often get asked about is there's a significant amount of projects that fail when we're trying to go from a data science a development effort where we're building models and building applications into production. So when we are ready to move from development into production, we need to have been talking to the line of business executives whose area and processes are going to change. Their people are going to have to do things different because we're going to put in advanced analytics models. You have to be talking to the IT department because they usually own the systems which you're going to be making changes to. And then you also have to have the data science team involved in that conversation. So when do you start that conversation? You actually start that conversation with the business executives when you started the project. If you've started that conversation about how their area is going to change after you've done all the modeling and work, you're way behind. because organizational change management is always one of the most difficult parts of the project. So you start that early, and you have this triumvirate. You have the line of business, you have the IT, and you have the advanced analytics group working together and collaborating. So we heard this undercurrent of communication from all the different people that I just mentioned. And what we do in our advanced analytics projects is that we demand that the line of business dedicate a subject matter expert to the project. So if the line of business can't give us someone who's going to work with us on a regular basis, then we don't undertake the project. Because I think it was Bernard that said, we're very good at math and things like that, but we don't really understand the business processing. So I'm going to stop there. I see Kate, so I'm sure I've run over my time, and I'll wrap it up there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. First of all, I think this topic is not, it doesn't get enough airtime, right? We don't talk about this enough. We focus so much on the technical side of things. So I'm really glad to have you here, and a lot of great comments and questions coming in. So many people have already read your book and they're recommending the book, and other people are going and buying the book. People are sharing the link. So I'm glad to see that. We can take one question here from Deb. I thought it was interesting. Can we get a vote on centralized or decentralized analytics functions organizationally? What's your vote?
Absolutely. That's a great question, and if we're going to take one, that's a great one to talk about. I have a center of excellence, which is a centralized function, but throughout CSL we have decentralized groups that have data scientists throughout that. So what I do is I have almost, you can think of a lend-lease program. So people come to me and say, hey, I want to work on this project, and I can do the data part, but I can't do the data science part. I will lend them a data scientist to do that. So my data scientists work centrally, but they go into the decentralized areas and work together. And we also rotate people around. So there may be a group in manufacturing that's doing analytics, and some of those people want to come and work in the central advanced analytics function. So we'll trade people back and forth. So it's both, and they work together.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that, John. And if people want to vote in the comments, centralized versus decentralized, go ahead and feel free to do that. The comments have been really great that were coming in. So John, thank you again for your time today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker.
Thanks, Kate. Bye-bye.
All right. So our next speaker is Omri Cole. He's the CEO and co-founder of Pyramid Analytics. He leads Pyramid Analytics strategy and operations, bringing his deep understanding of the BI market and valuable management experience to a company at the forefront of today's fast-growing business intelligence industry. Omri is a highly experienced entrepreneur with a proven track record for developing and managing fast-growth companies. He studied economics, finance, and business management, has an MBA from Manchester University, and an MBA in international business management from NYU. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring Omri up on stage. First of all, look, we don't match for some reason. You've got the
shirts. That's awesome.
We traded shirts. Thank you guys so much for this sweatshirt. I actually love it. My husband touched it. He's like, how do I get one of these? And yeah, really great stuff. Yes. So Omri, thank you so much for being here today. I know you're going to talk about the role of trust in enterprise analytics. I think this is an extremely relevant topic, especially today. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off the virtual stage, and you can take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having Pyramid and having me as part of a very impressive line of speakers. I would like to share my screen, so give me a second just to make sure I can do that. So, you know, we definitely live in a very interesting time when it comes to data, and the speakers before me, and I'm sure after me, are going to keep on talking on how data transforms our life, our businesses, the way we think about businesses, the way we approach them. And I think one of the topics that we see more frequently, maybe in the last couple of years, is the idea behind trust. Can you actually trust what you're doing with your data analytics, with your data analytics platforms, with the data infrastructure that you have? When we talk to our customers, over 80% of them say that they will and still do need to run their businesses with the perspective of data. But when you ask them if they trust the data, then the amount of positive responses chopped by almost 50%. So around 40% of the people trust the data that they use. And I would like during the next few minutes to maybe give you 4 best practices on how you can improve the trust of your of the organization and the users in the organization in the data that you're collecting, in the insights that you're getting from the data that you're collecting. And I think that there is a very, very tight relationship between analytics, not just the data, but analytics and trust. People take very intuitive decisions. We're not used to be mandated how to think by results, by data. We actually have intuitions from our past life, from experience, from working with colleagues. And all of a sudden, when we see something that doesn't feel highly intuitive but comes from data, we start to question it. Should I actually use that number? Should I actually change the product pricing? Should I actually go and, Bernard mentioned fish feeding. So is that fish really being overly fed or underfed? Do I trust the data? And this is something that if we won't be able to overcome, it's going to be a very big barrier for us to grow as an organization and use data for our benefit. So today, because data became a tier 1, or analytics became a tier 1 application, because data is such a big part of our competitive advantage, because data is a huge part of how we build and run our businesses, it's the trust side of it is probably more important than ever. So those are my perspectives, and I'm sure that everybody else have lots of ideas. I just want to provide some guidance or some ideas around how we think we can improve our customers' trust in data. And people talked earlier about data literacy and training, and I'll touch on that as well. But I think trust in data will start when you form a data culture. And data culture happens only if it's like a scissors movement from the top down, where leaders will start to talk positively about using data in organizations, using data to make decisions, bring in teams together and brainstorm around the insights that they found and how to use them, versus maybe dismissing it just because we don't believe in the insights or the data that we've collected. So established data leaders as outspoken proponents, I think, is extremely important. The second maybe best practice, and maybe not necessarily in that order, but a center of excellence, and John spoke before me about forming a center of excellence. I think that that's extremely important part of building trust in organizations to create more data-driven decisions. If you have some center of excellence, and this is a place where you can build trust internally and externally around the data that is being used, collected, and reflected internally and externally, then the center of excellence becomes that center of trust. Comprehensive data literacy and training programs. There were plenty of conversations around that topic in the last couple hours, and I've been watching all of them. I think they provided great guidance. So I don't want to hammer that too much, but obviously the more we understand how to leverage the data that we collect, the more we can trust the insights that we gain from it. So training, data literacy is a huge part of building trust, and stop using intuitive decision making and using data to build a business would definitely come from that. And the third part, I think this is maybe somewhat sounds like negative, but I think big part of the problem is that people will question answers that will come from data that doesn't reflect what their intuition tells them. So we need to create, maybe next to the Excellence Center, an institution that can go in and check the data integrity for the users. If someone comes in and say, you know what, I got a dashboard that shows that my sales are dropping, and I actually feel that there is tremendous momentum in my territory. How can that be? So creating an institution that can go into the data, make sure that the integrity of the data maintains clear, it's clean, it reflects exactly the business performance, would assure that I can actually work with the data, I can trust it, I can gain more and more trust as we go and build on that. So just to summarize the topic, I think that we're in a point in time where data became AI, data as a whole, and the usage of data becomes so fundamental for businesses to grow. And if you think about the biggest businesses in the world are data-driven, right? From maybe Amazon to Facebook to LinkedIn and so on and so forth. Those are the drivers of their industries because they're so data-driven. So data is a fundamental part of gaining competitive advantage. But if we won't believe in the data, if we won't trust it, if we will question the origin of it all the time, it will be a barrier to grow that part of data to become such a fundamental part of businesses. So I will leave it with you, and I would appreciate if you would take a look at other topics that I'm trying to share with the audience. And thank you for that. Thank you, Kate.
Awesome. So I stopped the sharing screen, but if you could stay on for a few minutes, Omri, thank you so much for that talk. First of all, I'd like to just also say that Pyramid Analytics provides really awesome visuals. So if anyone's seen my Sankey chart that I've put out probably a week or so ago, where I was looking at the total number of registrations by company, where you see Similarity kind of takes the lead about 2 weeks ago, because Pedro is very motivated in getting his company the #1 in terms of registrations. But it was really easy for me to use Pyramid Analytics to go ahead and put that together. So I really love playing with that tool. Highly encourage people to go to pyramidanalytics.com and check stuff out. You have a lot of people here in the comments agreeing with the notion that we definitely need trust. And I'm just looking for a good question because they're flowing so quickly past me. Let's see. Thomas is asking, how can we be sure that data is trustworthy? There is no metric for that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that those best practices are part of making data trustworthy. It's not there isn't a silver bullet for that. There isn't one thing that you can go after and everybody will believe the data that comes out of it. I think that we live in silos of implementations. People run off different initiatives. Once we will start thinking as a holistic or holistically as an organization, then that would create maybe a more cohesive approach to data. And then those 4 best practices as a start, I hope that would make a change in the way people trust data.
Absolutely. I hope so too. And we'll just take one more question here from Gilbert. What do you think is the role of individual data professionals in building trust?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, well, first of all of us, and you know, this conference is a great advocacy for data, right? We all data geeks to a certain degree, DATAcateds, and I think that our role as individuals is to try and use data to run the business. If you look at a certain KPI and try to perform with that KPI, you will be an advocate of trust in data. So I really think that each one of us can improve the way we operate with data.
Absolutely. I know I said that was the last question, but there's a quick one here from Deb. Is Pyramid Analytics cloud or on-prem or both?
It's a pure cloud offering, but it could be implemented anywhere. On-prem, private cloud, public cloud, hybrid, multi, everything.
Awesome. All right. Well, Omri, thank you so much for your time today. At this point, I'm actually going to go ahead and play a little video from Pyramid Analytics. So without further ado,
thank you very much,
Omri.
Kate.
Data and analytics make the world a better place
by allowing us to make decisions driven by data,
by allowing us to be driven by facts instead of feelings,
by allowing us to identify emerging problems sooner,
by improving the lives of people.
Data and analytics can help organizations
by creating a single version of the truth,
by easily providing key insights,
by helping drive efficiencies and increase profitability,
by allowing us to personalize and build stronger relationships with our customers.
Data helps me in my day-to-day life by allowing me to analyze my finances year over year,
by helping manage my family and budget,
with discovering new music,
letting me make better decisions about my health,
by showing me where to focus my attention.
And it also allows me to track my exercise routines. I'm an avid mountain biker.
I'm DATAcated.
I'm DATAcated.
I'm DATAcated.
I'm DATAcated.
To telling better stories with data.
To turning information into insights.
To being the best at my craft.
To making the world a better place for everyone.
Pyramid is a trusted analytics platform
for whatever you're DATAcated to.
Awesome. I love that. And I love the use of I am DATAcated too. I'd love to hear what you guys are DATAcated to as I introduce our next speaker from Fivetran. So Ryan Muthing joined Fivetran in 2018, where he actually has helped build the analytics team as they strive to enable Fivetran to make data-driven decisions. Prior to Fivetran, he worked as a consultant in financial software. So Ryan, welcome to the virtual stage and welcome to the DATAcated conference.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. I'm really excited that you're here with us today. I'm looking forward to hearing your talk about how access to data enables Fivetran to be on the leading edge of a data-driven culture. I know you're sharing your screen, so if you'd like, I could put your slides up and I can disappear for 10 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Today I kind of wanted to touch on how we use our own products at Fivetran to promote our analytics team goal of enabling Fivetran to be data-driven. So discussion of how we're kind of taking our own medicine, so to speak. So first off, I kind of want to go over briefly what we do at Fivetran. Fivetran is a fully managed data pipeline as a service where we use predefined normalized schemas to load data from source to warehouse. We're fully hosted in the cloud using an ELT, extract, load, transform philosophy, as opposed to the traditional ETL. Our software eliminates the maintenance and configuration piece of the traditional data pipelines. We have 200 plus native connectors that require no coding, and where you just have to authenticate to start the data flow process. All it takes is a 5-minute setup, and you can get started analyzing your data from there. You also don't have to worry about the support because our support team takes care of all of that, as well as any kind of maintenance in your data pipeline. Next, I wanted to give an overview of how we see the modern analytics architecture using this ELT methodology. Starting from the top, we see a vast array of data sources, applications, database, events, files, and so on and so forth. This source data pool is expanding every year with more and more cloud-based sources as well. According to a survey of data professionals and analysts, 52% of companies have at least 10 data sources, with the vast majority of companies having some cloud-based data source as well, and that number just continues to grow and grow. So how does the analyst get from data source to insights? First, all sources should be maintained in normalized schema in a cloud-based data warehouse, such as Snowflake, BigQuery, or Redshift. The extract and load process should be reliable, and all schema changes should happen automatically in the background. Next, the modeling or transform layer occurs on top of the source data replica in the warehouse. This has the huge benefit of always having the original source data, which we can always return to if business logic requires us to make some sort of changes in that modeling layer. Once we have that modeling layer, it powers all of our downstream data products, such as BI, ML, or really any other analytics needs. Our modeling layer becomes a source of truth and all downstream data aligns. So how does Fivetran help us achieve this vision? With Fivetran, we can let the product handle the extract and load processes while we focus on what we're best at, the transformation or modeling layers. we're able to spend the vast majority of our time data modeling and driving insights for our business stakeholders. We can focus on figuring out how we can integrate all of these various data sources to drive value and not worry about having to build and maintain data pipelines. To kind of give a little background on how we've gotten to this point, I wanted to show this timeline, which shows kind of how the data management process has changed, moving away from processes which were maintained by IT and data engineers previously to today, where analysts are able to work directly with business users to identify the important sources of data, then immediately get access and act upon that data. One of the most important aspects of this change is that the analyst is the person who best knows all the different requirements and is able to implement changes immediately, whereas before there was often a cycle of asking for a specific piece of data, waiting for that data to get added to the warehouse, finally getting access, then only to realize an additional component or data set was required for the analysis, and then repeating that whole process, adding time to the total project. This is no longer an issue where the analysts are able to run this process and be able to act a little bit more quickly and kind of change that pipeline on the fly. So Fivetran has allowed our analytics team at Fivetran to just keep up with the growth and fast-paced change of our company. One excellent example that just kind of came up in the past couple of days I wanted to go over was our recruiting team just decided to switch systems from Weber to Greenhouse, along with all corresponding and reporting analytics. We were made aware of these changes last Friday afternoon, along with the rest of the company in a Slack message, which isn't the best place for us to get this news, but thanks to Fivetran, we were kind of able to go along with the punches. Using traditional ETL tools, getting a new data set into the warehouse could take a couple of months, and our team wouldn't have access to their reporting and data during that time. But with Fivetran, we're able to connect Greenhouse to our warehouse and have data flowing on Monday. So, a couple of business hours difference times that we're able to get access and start analyzing data. We will still need a few weeks to go through and analyze this new data coming in so we can understand how it fits into our current data model and how we can best implement the new data set, maintaining their existing metrics while understanding opportunities for new insights. However, it highlights the analyst's ability to focus their time on data modeling and insight delivery, while Fivetran is able to handle the extract and load processes. It also has the added benefit of cutting the project duration and time to results from an order of magnitude of months to just weeks. All of this comes back to the fact that data access and ensuring data reliability is very, very time consuming and probably not the best use of your analytics team's time. Here are some more of the stats from the previously mentioned survey of analysts. A couple of the points I wanted to highlight was the 60% of analysts report data schemas change monthly or even more frequently than that. And then 90% of analysts report data sources were unreliable in the last 12 months. These are two kind of metrics that really highlight this, just how quickly data is changing and how if we're not able to keep up with that, your reliability as a data team can really be hindered. They just highlight some of the challenges in building a data-driven culture. Timely access to our required sources and building trust in the data that it's correct, so important and foundational to allow a data-driven culture to thrive. So what is the end result here? So what Fivetran allows us to do on the analytics team at Fivetran allows us to strive towards our goal of building a curated analytics schema, which takes all of our source data into account while maintaining our principles of providing a clean, reliable data set, maintaining a source of truth, providing a data set that's BI agnostic and that can be used for all of our downstream data needs. We use tools such as Looker for more of our company level metrics, well, we might have some more ad hoc tools such as Sigma or Google Sheets that were used for more single point in time reporting, but we want them to be using the same data source so that if we look at results across these products, we see the same metrics. And then one of the other huge benefits is this high data literacy for all of our data users, that we're using a single model that they can say, this is the source of truth, this is how I get from one point to another, and I'm building this schema. So all of these things lead to our successful analytics foundation, where it promotes our data-driven culture at Fivetran and really gets everyone behind the analytics team at Fivetran. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to highlight today. And I was hoping to spend kind of the rest of the time just answering any questions about anything, any questions people might have.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Ryan. It was really interesting to learn more about Fivetran, what you guys do, and just letting the audience know, if you go to fivetran.com, you can learn a whole lot more. But for now, let's go ahead and go to some questions. I'll start with one from Scott Taylor. He's asking, since you use Fivetran internally, what type of data management effort was needed to get going? I think he's referring to the recruiting team example.
Yeah, it's honestly one of the easiest things ever. So, whenever we're getting a new source coming in, all it really is, working with the team to making sure we have a good, API endpoint set up. So we, work with them to get access that is going to have access to all the data that we need, and then really just putting it in, getting going, and letting the data flow from there. It's so easy to get started, and it, really just cuts down. I'd say we spend, on the team as a whole, minutes a week doing data maintenance. It's just such a small part of our job now, where we just really are focusing on the modeling and, any sort of insight or alerting. That's where we're able to focus all of our time now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. A comment here from Bianca on the 90%. No wonder there is data trust issues. I actually wrote that down too. 90% of data sources were unreliable in the last 12 months. I mean, that's just crazy.
Crazy. There was a great survey that it's available on our website, and I can send out a link. But yeah, there's a lot of great insights in that data survey, and that was one of the ones that really just pointed out to me. And I definitely believe it. And I think the previous presentation mentioned that data trust is just such a big issue. We're constantly trying to just making sure people believe that what we're showing them is correct. And once you have that belief, it's, just such a huge part of the battle in making that data-driven culture.
Awesome. Thank you. And then last question from me is, how do the Fivetran pre-built connectors that you were mentioning earlier actually help companies centralize their operational data?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is these pre-built schemas. So as you're, have all these different data sources coming in, you're able to, we provide pre-built schemas so that then you can go, once you're in your modeling layer, you're able to combine all these disparate data sources and build this this curated schema, which I was talking about before, so that if you have, leads in Marketo and then contacts in Salesforce, you're able to see that in a schema beforehand. And then once you get to your modeling, you're able to combine all those things. So you have this single blend. So I think that's one of the best parts of how Fivetran views the data schema.
Okay, awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for your time. So like I mentioned, guys, go ahead and check out Fivetran.com. At this point, I'm going to play a quick video from Fivetran. So thank you so much, Ryan. And
thank you.
Stay tuned.
Awesome.
If you have ambitious analytics goals, you need a modern data stack, connectors, cloud warehouse, and business intelligence tools. But building it yourself is complex and expensive. There are more siloed data sources and systems than ever before, and you have less time and fewer technical resources. Fear not, we got you. Fivetran makes centralizing data from any source to any warehouse effortless. Our fully managed, fully automated connectors deploy in minutes. No coding, no maintenance, no stressing out about source changes. Just insights. 5Track, powering data products so analysts can dream big.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So at this point, we've got our last track. We've got 1 hour left to go, and we're going to talk about data careers and networking. Before I bring on the next speaker, just quickly, if you stayed on for the entire first 3 hours, please just let us know in the comments. Just say the word DATAcated, and if you need to spell it, you can literally look at every speaker's t-shirt or anywhere else in any posts that I've been engaged in the past 2 months. But yeah, let us know how dedicated you are if you stayed on for the entire session. The next speaker is very special. He stayed up very, very late, or should I say early in the morning for him to deliver his talk. It's Danny Ma. So Danny Ma is the founder and CEO of Sydney Data Science. He has over 8 years of experience in data and has worked in almost every single role in the data ecosystem. He includes time as a data analyst, a data scientist, a data engineer, and machine learning engineer. He is super passionate about mentoring and is always finding ways to give back to the data community. Danny runs the Data with Danny community with over 3,000 people and will soon be launching his initiative where you can actually join him on a virtual apprenticeship where he will be your personal guide and mentor in your data journey. So make sure to follow Danny. Danny is also the king of memes and free Udemy courses. So if you've ever seen a free Udemy course post, that was probably from Danny. At this point, Danny, you're still up. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here, Kate. This is so exciting. I'm a little bit nervous, actually, but I hope this will be really fun. I'm wearing my DATAcated shirt, so I am dedicated.
Thank you so much for that. So, Danny, I'm going to go ahead and hop off the stage. If you need me, I'll be right back here.
For sure. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And as Kate mentioned, I've been in multiple roles across the entire data ecosystem. And throughout my career, I've come to a few different realizations. And some of these realizations might be able to help you on your career, on your own data journey as you're going through some of the challenges. And I think that some of these ideas will definitely help you as you're progressing through. I'm really excited to share them with you. So to keep it really simple, there are 3 letters for these ideas, and they are UAC. So if you tune out for the rest of this presentation, just remember those 3 letters. And from there, the U stands for understanding. So when we think of data science and the whole data process and everything that we do within our careers in the data industry, we're always looking to solve problems, try to get the value out of some of the data. But before we even do any of that, I believe that having a good understanding of the problem, of the situation, of what's going on in some of these different areas is going to be super important when you're trying to tackle some of these problems. So one of my favorite books is by Stephen Covey, and it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of those habits is seek first to understand before being understood. So throughout my career, when I started off, I was kind of very, I think that I was very headstrong. I always wanted to let people know what my thoughts were, what my ideas were, which direction the project should go towards. But sometimes I was just off the mark because I actually didn't have a good understanding of what was going on. And I think as we progress in our careers and we get more experience, we realize that when we jump in and have kind of all those different ideas that we have, they're great, they're really good. And I think it's really great to share them, but it's even more important to kind of take a step back and try and understand exactly what sort of problem you're solving. And this is especially the case in a lot of these problems that we're solving within the data world. So understanding is super, super key for anything in terms of understanding the problem, understanding the data that's going into the different solutions that you're building. Also understanding the people that you're working with. Oftentimes when we're going through our careers, we deal with people when we're working on the workplace. Having good relationships with your coworkers, your managers, some of the teams that you need to get data from, all of this is really important, and you have to take a step back and try and understand where are they coming from? What initiatives are they trying to push forward? How can you fit yourself in so then you can work together as a team? Data and data science is definitely a team sport. It's not going to be an individual sport for sure. So the first letter out of the UAC, U stands for understanding. Okay, now onto the second letter, A. A stands for artisan. So John talked about this a little bit earlier when he talked about the artisanal teams, or the teams that have ownership over the entire process. So for me, artisan, being a data artisan, and the people who are really skilled and experts in their craft, I have so much respect for those people. For the people who are, they really have their soul in the game. When you think about the old school artisans, like the different masters and experts, your cheese makers, your wine makers, your artisan bread makers, the master chefs who have everything down pat. And for me, when I think about artisans, it's a really romantic idea. So for example, whenever I go traveling, I wish I could go traveling right now, I usually try and find out anything where there's pottery. I like taking back pottery so then I can kind of remember why I went there and kind of bring something back that was made from that area. So in the same way, when we think of artisans in the data sense, I believe that for us in our careers, we want to reach that level of mastery. It doesn't really matter which area we want to master in terms of the data science processes or the whole data ecosystem. The point is when we're progressing in our careers, we always want to be moving forward, or we want to be learning more skills or improving the things that we really want to specialize in. So when I think of us as data artisans in our trade and in our craft, there's a few different things that come into it. So when you think of artisans in terms of those masters who really understand the entire process of what they're doing, we can think of kind of like a master carpenter who specializes in furniture, for example. So the carpenter, of course, he has to know what his customers want. They want awesome furniture. They need the right designs. They need the right finishes. They need to be marketed properly to the right audience. So having that understanding of what your end user is going to use and the different functions and the different things that you want to design for are very important. So that's at the end of the goal. But when you take it upstream a little bit, so what does the carpenter make his furniture out of? He makes it out of raw timber. And the artisan, that master craftsman, will know every single thing about every single type of timber. He'll know a specific wood needs to be treated in this way, so it has to be flexible enough so it fits into the design of a specific chair that he wants to build for one of his customers. And having that knowledge, that deep knowledge of everything that's going on with that timber, how it's processed, how he should treat it, all of those different things, the artisan kind of picks up over his experiences. And in the same way, when we're working with data in our careers, we want that same level of intuition where you just know what is going on with those inputs, with what is going on upstream of wherever you're doing your magic. And when we talk about magic, this is where that carpenter, that furniture maker really gets into it. So he knows all of the different tools that he's going to use to make that piece of wood into a piece of furniture that his customer desires. Now, when we think of tools in data science and in the data industry, there's going to be lots of tools. They're going to come and go. There's going to be some which are more difficult to learn than others. When we think of it from an artisan point of view, I think that the artisan, they use the tools to get the job done. Tools are just a part of it. How they apply the tools to do certain things to the timber, that's where the important thing is. So for example, you might be really good at using a saw to cut through timber, but what happens when power tools come in? Are you going to continue using the power tool? Are you going to continue using the hand saws? Or are you going to transfer over to something which is more efficient, something which is more accurate, something which reduces the amount of time it takes for you to do whatever you need to do to produce that magic. So when we think of the artisans and the processes and the raw materials and the tools, in the same way, when we're doing the data as experts and masters in our craft within that data space, we should think of it in the same way. So it doesn't matter if let's say you're a data engineer or a machine learning engineer or a data scientist, reporting analyst, all of it, they are just different roles and different focuses, but all of them can still lead to mastery for that specific role. And I think that is really important, because we see a lot that people kind of like they have these different tiers for the different roles. Like, oh, if you're not a data scientist, you're not valuable to the company, or something stupid like that. I think that when we think of artisans, it's really, or when we think of ourselves in our data careers, we're there to add value, and it doesn't really matter how we do it. And it doesn't matter what other people say about what we're doing as well. So to go back to this framework, we've now covered the U and the A, the understanding and the artisan, in quite a lot of depth. And what does C stand for? C stands for curiosity. And I think that curiosity is the thing that leads us to want to understand people and processes and systems. And the curiosity also leads us to wanting to perfect our craft, wanting to improve, wanting to try and find out how we can do something slightly different and see if the result is different. That sounds like science, doesn't it? In terms of trying out different interventions, different experiments, and trying to see what comes out and optimize the final output. So I think curiosity is the key for when we think of the data careers, when we think of growing and learning new skills and kind of broadening our understanding of the overall process, the whole data science process, or just understanding more about data governance or different areas of the whole data ecosystem. I think that having that base level of curiosity is the thing that's going to drive you forward. And I believe that that is the thing, the crux out of this feeling. When we really want to find out more, that curiosity will just drive you forward. And I think that's the energy that you need to take into any different problem that you're trying to solve, so you can really, really understand it really well and improve your craft. And I know this might sound really overwhelming in terms of you need to be a master, you need to be an expert, and blah, all of that stuff. I think we think very short term in general. And what we need to do is kind of, our careers, it's more like a marathon. It's not a sprint. I've posted about this many times, but I think we need to think about how we're going to have a long-term vision and what we're going to do on a daily basis to kind of move ourselves towards where we need to get to. And I think when we go through this process, of course, there's going to be some up days where we're feeling awesome. There are going to be some down days where we're not feeling so great. There'll be days when you just feel like giving up. But the thing is, we just need to have that macro view and really see where we're going, compare ourselves to where we were before, and just keep having that growth mindset, pushing you towards where you really want to be in your data career. And I think the most important thing is to believe in yourself. You can do it. If you believe and have really strong conviction in where you're going, I 100% believe that you will make it. So in summary, there are 3 letters to this presentation: U for understanding, A for artisan, and C for curiosity. Thank you so much for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Danny. I love your presentation. We have a lot of your fans are here saying if you follow Danny, you never have to pay for anything ever again because of your note for your free Udemy courses. I love the presentation today. There's a great question here from Sneha asking, which letter from UAC do you think is the most important to work on?
This is a really great question. I would love to say all of them. I think there's some sort of interesting synergy between all of them where you want to have that curiosity to understand what's going on to improve your skills and kind of improve the impact that you want to have. So I'm really torn between all three letters, and I think different people will have a focus towards a different letter throughout different points in their career. I know that's definitely the case for me. But yeah, I feel that I really can't choose one. Sorry.
Yeah. So no, thank you for that. So there's an interesting question here that somebody asked midway through your talk, asking the rest of the audience to guess what the C stands for before you announce that it stands for curiosity. And I just wanted to share a couple of guesses. So we had we had caution, we had the word careful, and now the comments have gone so fast that I can't even scroll back up to it. But I thought that it was really fun to see people trying to guess that last C when it's actually curiosity. So a lot of great comments here for you, Danny. I really appreciate your time here. I'm trying to see if we can take one more question, or there's a comment here again from Sneha. I love how you focused on the other qualities of this field by going beyond the technical skills, to focus on creativity, communication, and simply some interest. Yeah, I really love that too. I think there's so much focus on the technical side of our field that we need to kind of step back sometimes and just really think bigger picture. So thank you for providing that for us today.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Awesome. All right, Danny, thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our very next speaker at this point. So I'm going to thank you. Stay DATAcated. Awesome. Oh, no, I cut him off. Wait, Danny, apologies.
Stay DATAcated.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, at this point, I'd love to introduce Sarah Nuravi. So Sarah is a senior financial analyst at Snap Inc. with over 4 years of experience in the field of data science and analytics. With a focus in marketing analytics, she has a history of delivering innovative marketing tools to help drive better business decisions in the entertainment, social media, and gaming industries. She is also passionate about teaching and giving back to the community. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to bring up Sarah Nuravi on our virtual stage. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, Kate. Thanks so much for having me. Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Danny,
hello.
that was an amazing presentation. Good night to you.
I know. I hope Danny gets some sleep. So if I didn't mention this earlier, Danny's in Australia and it takes 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning for him. So I hope Danny, you tune out and get some sleep, unless you want to stick around for the rest of the conference. But at this point, Sarah, I know you're going to talk about something so relevant for us right now. It's all about networking during a pandemic, networking like a pro. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off stage. We'll share your screen for you and let you take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. All right. Hopefully this will tie into a lot of some of the concepts that Danny already brought up. So hopefully there'll be a common theme here. So today we're going to talk about networking for the next 10, 15 minutes. And the title of the talk is Networking Like a Pro During a Pandemic. But I really hope that the concepts that we talk about here will be useful in or out of a pandemic and at any point in your career. So this is, let's see. So let's figure out some technical stuff. Okay, cool. So the general talk is going to kind of cover what is networking, why is it important? Hopefully this shouldn't be like totally new, but towards the end, we'll get into how to do it better and maybe rethinking the way we think about networking that hopefully will be very insightful and refreshing for you all. So let's start with what is it? Why is it important? So really succinctly, I guess, or in a nutshell, I came up with this definition that hopefully we can all agree on, that really what networking allows you to do is expand the realm of opportunities to much more than you can achieve alone. And the quote that comes to mind when we're thinking about networking is, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I think the most relevant, example of something that has been achieved with not just using one person, but kind of leveraging the network is kind of Kate putting on this conference, right? So not only has she kind of done this in such a quick amount of time, but if we think about how long she's actually really worked to put this together, it's been years of developing relationships that she's been able to leverage to kind of put this on. So great job, Kate. Shout out to her for putting this on and for allowing us to have the stage to kind of talk about some of these very relevant topics. So moving on from kind of what it is, why it's important, I think that should be very, very relevant and very obvious to most of us, right? So actually leading up to this talk, I asked some of my colleagues and friends, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's navigating their networking journey, or maybe just starting out? And I got a range of, it's a very broad questions, and I got a range of answers. Things like, be genuine, think about what you have to offer. Others said, you need to persevere, you're going to face a lot of rejections along the way. Others said, don't be afraid, you never know who you'll meet or what you'll learn. Still others said, and I actually found this one shocking when I first heard it, attract attention, do something controversial, help yourself gain exposure. And really, if you look at the lineup for today's conference and you look at each one of these speakers, they've done this, right? They've created a brand for themselves on LinkedIn and on YouTube, various channels, to kind of create a network around them and bring the network to them by talking about it and engaging with their communities, right? So look to our speakers as great ways of building networks. Others of my friends said, I don't know, I haven't needed to network, or maybe I don't like people. Fair. And then the last one is, it's a numbers game. Reach out to as many people as possible. Now, when I looked at these responses, I really thought, these are all very valid pieces of advice, but really then it begged the question of, what is the goal, right? So when I heard, it's a numbers game, reach out to as many people as possible, I thought, wow, I would never tell someone to do that. But depending on the goal that you have, that actually might be the best strategy. So really here, the key takeaway is define the goal, and that'll define the strategy, right? And so we think about two different types of goals, really. Like, we can bucket them into the short-term, very obvious ones, I want that job, or I want that opportunity, or the longer-term goals. I'm in this domain now, I want to connect with people who can share the similar interests, maybe I can learn from them, right? And so two different types of goals. And in this presentation, I hope to focus on the latter, right? Let's optimize for long-term goals. What does that really mean? It means optimizing for relationship building or optimizing for connection. So what does that really do to someone who's thinking about networking when they're thinking about optimizing for connection rather than a transactional, hey, I want, the short-term goals? Well, it really now allows you to think about the other person, right? It's not about what you have to gain anymore. It's about also what you have to give. And maybe, do I have anything in common with that person? Do I see myself being friends with them or colleagues with them into the future, right? Do we have common interests? What are their goals? What do they want, right? So it makes you start thinking about this relationship as less of a take and more of a give-take, right? And so here I'm going to get into 6 tips. The last one is more, maybe 7 tips, but 6 major ones that I hope you guys find very insightful. So the first one is really, tip number 1 is reaching out to dormant ties. So when we think about networking, it's kind of awkward, right? Like having to reach out to random strangers and really, not understand, maybe overcoming the anxiety of, talking to people that you've never talked to before. But really here, the first one should be low-hanging fruit, right? Reaching out to existing connections that you already have. So these are otherwise called dormant ties. And so when I think about this, I also think about kind of the Facebook notifications that I get to mark milestones that I've had with people, 5 or 10 years of having friendship with that person. And then I'm like, oh my God, like, do I really want to, I haven't talked to this person in so long. But think about what's happened over the past 5 or 10 years. They've changed jobs, they've changed locations, they've created their own sub-networks. Rekindling that friendship might lead to a totally different relationship today than it did 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And so people you met in high school and college and prior workplace and prior jobs that you've had might be a really, really great place to start in your networking journey. Tip number 2 is that if you're going to go outside of your circle, instead maybe try going through your circle. So what do I mean by this? So I'm going to bring up some of the speakers. So if I wanted to know how to make some amazing memes or anything to do with kind of what Danny Ma just spoke about, maybe I would reach out to him and ask him for that advice. If I wanted to know how to maybe become an entrepreneur, I talked to Lillian. If I wanted some experience, some firsthand experience of what it was like to build my own conference, I'd talk to Kate. But then if there was someone outside of my network, maybe like Ashley, who works at Deloitte, and maybe I was curious about maybe joining her team, I would leverage someone who's already in my network, Bo, and I'd say, hey, do you mind introducing us? There's several advantages to this, is that you're probably going to get a better interaction with that person. There's already a mutual connection, so you're not a stranger. And you're probably likely, and in my case, I was able to leverage a friend of mine who got me connected to a lawyer, and she gave me many hours of free advice, which you maybe otherwise wouldn't have gotten. So LinkedIn does this very nicely for us, right? So it tells us the proximity of where we are relative to other people in our network. And we're able to now say, okay, this person's a friend, this person's a friend of a friend, and it makes it a little bit easier to do that. Tip number 3, avoid networking events. Again, this leans more towards the transactional type, the very short-term goals that we had. So the handing out business cards, handing out resumes, really not aiming for long-term connection and relationship building. So instead, maybe try and find some events where, things that you're already interested in that you can start very natural conversations with. And if you're looking for where to find these events, many of us are posting on LinkedIn. Maybe attending this conference is a great start, right? Try connecting to people. And this leads me to my next point, is get personal, be personable, right? So people with high IQ and low EQ aren't the people that you want to associate with and, go grab a drink with after work. But if you can find commonality and be personable and work on the social skills, right? Danny talked about that, like having a very well-rounded soft skills. Those are super important to your success in not only your data science career, but in general, right? And so here, I think about how many company-sponsored events happen and happy hours and events that they put on, and most people will say, nah, I'm going to opt out of that. And when you opt out of that, you're also opting out of the relationship that you can have with a salesperson, a relationship you can have with someone on marketing, a relationship you can have with someone, maybe even on your data team that you haven't talked to. So you miss out on a lot when you don't attend these events. And what these events actually help make easy, what they allow you to do is really bond over something non-work related, right? And so you get to share an experience together that you'll be able to talk about afterwards and build rapport and build social capital that you can, later on leverage. So tip number 5. Quality over quantity. Oh my God, I can't stress this enough. So these are real messages. I blocked out who they are, but these are real messages that I get to my inbox. And it's all about, hey, can you help me get this, right? And this goes back to the numbers approach, right? It's like, yeah, if you send out enough emails, maybe someone will respond and you'll get maybe, some traction there. But really, in terms of long-term relationship building, this isn't the way to go. And most of these messages I don't respond to because it's not a win-win for both sides. It's actually a lose-lose because I can't give you a quality recommendation and you don't get the quality recommendation. So in relation to this, actually, the way to do it better, the way to frame this a little bit better, is to use the 51-49 rule. And we all have our different varying opinions on Gary Vee, but I love what he says here, right? He wants to be remembered for the 51-49, meaning that he's giving more than he's getting. And so approaching things from a mindset of what do I have to give, and really approaching the relationship with generosity and what that other person, how you can help the other person in all of your relationships actually ends up helping you, and you end up more successful when people see that you are being generous with your time. So talking about time, the next point that I have to make is really that, when should you be networking? And so I got this from Indeed, and it says the most common time for using your network is during the job search. And notice the operative word here, using, right? So that means the building phase happened long before the leveraging and the using of the network. So when should you be building your network, you say? Well, my advice to you is that you should always be connecting. ABC, always be connecting. I took this from a sales thing, always be closing, always be connecting. You guys get the point. So here are some resources. You guys, I'll share these slides with you. I used a couple of TED Talks to kind of that I found very, very insightful. And some of these books are actually very amazing in helping you build those soft skills and understand how to be vulnerable, put yourself out there, connect with people. And so does this sound like a lot of common sense? Maybe, maybe that all of this, you're like, Sarah, hey, this is a lot of I already know all of this, but not all common sense is common practice. So I urge you to take some of the insights that we talked about today and leverage that into the networking events that you guys have today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah, for your talk. You're getting so many great questions and comments. I'm going to remove your screen for a minute. Yes, always be connecting. I absolutely love that. Anyone who's, kind of engaging in the comments right now, you guys are doing it right, because there are hundreds and thousands of people engaging with each other. It's a great place to really connect and talk. I loved all of your tips, Sarah. I did learn a couple of new ones. And I agree, it's not a numbers game, right? It's really quality over quantity, because you can send out 10,000 invitations of the sort that you shared, and yeah, they're not going to go very far. And I think a lot of the other prior speakers can vouch for that as well.
Right. Well, also, if you're optimizing for the short-term goal, you may get that, but then you're limited right after that. But say a connection and a relationship that you built, you never know how that'll come in handy later on. And if it ends right at the transaction, then you never get to see the fruits of where that relationship could have helped you in the future. So, and then also always be connecting. I mean, you never know who, we're probably over time. I could continue on forever. So
I wanted to just take one question from the audience, because I think it's really important. And speaking of time, is how do you overcome hesitation to network due to embarrassment? So some people might be shy. So any quick tips that you can share with Sneha?
I would honestly recommend read Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. She talks about vulnerability, and she talks about how when people describe what their most vulnerable moments are, they talk about putting themselves out there or trying something new. And really, those are the most courageous acts that you can do. And so rethinking the way you think about vulnerability could be very great. And so I recommend that book.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. If you have time to answer people's comments directly on LinkedIn, please go ahead and do so, because there are a lot of comments and questions on this. At this point, I'm going to thank you again, Sarah. I'm going to pop you off the stage. And I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Lillian Pearson. Super excited to introduce Lillian. She is the creator-in-chief behind Data Mania, and her mission is to support data professionals to evolve into world-class data leaders and entrepreneurs. To date, she's trained over 1 million, yes, 1 million workers on the topics of data science, data leadership, and data entrepreneurship. She's also kind enough to conduct a fun giveaway during her talk, so definitely stay tuned in for that. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and bring Lillian up on our virtual stage. And Lillian, you got the shirt on. Yay. Hi.
Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for having me. This is such an amazing conference.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. So I know you're going to talk about how to basically the 5 steps of how people can get started in freelancing in the data space. Super relevant, because at this point, people can't really just go out and get a job with the pandemic and with just other competition and stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and share your slides and hop off screen if you're all good with that.
Okay, yeah, that actually sounds really good. Okay. All right, guys. So I am going to talk to you today about the 5 steps to landing your first data freelancing client. And really, there are 4 main strategies for landing your first client in your data business fast. The one we're talking about today is brand up and engage, but you can also do soft sells, cold outreach, and freelance marketplaces. I really don't recommend the latter 2, but we don't have a lot of time to discuss all of that today. So I just wanted to kind of touch on the fact that there are other strategies that work quickly for getting your first client. But yeah, today we're going to talk about brand up and engage. And the reason we're talking about this method is because it is what I have seen to be most successful with my clients who are brand new. So this is Cam Lee, and he recently just landed $150,000 worth of contracts in his first 10 months in business. Actually, more than that now. And he's a marketing data scientist, very skillful, in demand, and skillful in a area of data that's in demand. But he didn't, when he started up with me like less than a year ago, he's brand new, didn't have a website or anything. And so his the method he used to land these contracts was actually what I'm going to show you like just now. So that's kind of why we're covering this. And again, my name is Lillian Pearson, and I am the founder of Data Mania. And I work with data professionals to help them to transform into world-class data leaders and entrepreneurs. I started Data Mania back in 2012. I've been a full-time expat since 2013, and I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Florida in the United States. Okay, so we are talking about the 5 steps to land your first data freelancing client in your data business. So when I say fast, I'm talking about possibly in 30 days or less, depending on how serious you are. This isn't the fastest approach, but it's in my experience, the best approach for just getting your first clients. Okay, so brand up and engage. And it's really 5 very simple steps. And once you know them, you think, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. Probably a lot of people think I should have thought of it that way, but it's just the first 4 steps are preparation steps almost, and you don't turn this thing on until step 5. So the first step is to identify a dream client. So what you've got to do is take your data expertise or your skills, whatever your area of data is, and you have to think about what is a transformation, what is a quick win, what is something that I can offer someone that needs it. All right. So you have to get really, really specific. And I'm not talking about a skill. I'm not talking about, I'll work for you hourly and get this done and you tell me what to do. This is like, hand this over to me and I will hand you a finished product that works kind of thing. So you have to think about, okay, who can I help, and find that one person that you can help, and then think, what do they need the most? And are they willing and able to pay for what you have in mind to offer? What is their job, and where do they hang out online? And then in step 2, you would define an offer. And going back to what I just said, you just want to get very specific and very clear. Research sub-niche and figure out like where are your data skills actually like most needed. So one of the things I see a lot in our industry is that data professionals, we show up for each other, which is amazing and great, but where we're really needed the most, both career data professionals and in entrepreneurs, where we're needed the most is in other industries that don't have our skill sets, because people are, dying for data insights that help them to stay competitive in their business. But but a lot of times us data professionals are kind of aggregated among each other. So that is a problem, because we are generally not hiring each other for our data expertise and skills, right? We usually it's someone from an outside business domain that needs support in insights that they can't get in-house or they don't have themselves. So identify your sub-niche, and then you want to craft your irresistible offers. And this is basically just, what is it that people are really, really going to need in that sub-niche from you that you're able to deliver. The third step is just to set up on social. So I have one of the women in my LinkedIn group mentioned, like, how do we do this if we still have a day job and we don't really want to be uncovered in terms of looking to do freelancing or something like that? So one way to actually, this method can be done. So you can land clients. I've had actually some of my clients have now landed clients basically doing this without actually putting it out there that they were looking for, extra work. But in the case that you're worried about being found out, another way to avoid that would be to maybe set up on a different network where most people, like your employers and stuff, aren't exactly looking for that kind of thing, where they maybe wouldn't see it as much, because this is all very subtle. You're not going out and selling yourself, period. That's the thing, is you're attracting instead of going and doing outbound. So you have to pick a network. And when I say pick a network, I don't mean, you've got to think about where is that ideal client hanging out online, and not just like where are they hanging out online to look at, pictures of cute puppies. It's got to be where are they hanging out online to find out information that's related to the transformation or service you're able to offer them. So in general, Facebook and Instagram are great for B2C and for if you're selling to entrepreneurs. So I hire all the time from people from both Instagram and Facebook. Now, if you're trying to sell B2B, then, LinkedIn is a far better network for that sort of thing. So, so you have to pick the optimal network where the person is going to basically find you. You're going to be found by your ideal client. And then you want to go there and identify the leaders. And when I say that, I mean the leaders of that sub niche you've identified. Usually, in all areas, there's even of just the sub niches, there's the thought leaders, right? And they've aggregated communities around their accounts, and so you have to identify who are the leaders, where are the thriving communities, and just make a list of those names. And have it and get everything all set up before you do anything. So that's where we're at now. Moving into step 4, this is where you brand up. And you don't have to be, all crazy and gorgeous and have everything perfect by any means. When I say brand up, I mean, 1, optimize your profile. So depending on what network you're on, you can usually just spend some time on YouTube, figure out like, how do I optimize this for search? How do I, make my call to action as clear as possible? Okay, so bringing us to the second point is you want a very, very clear call to action. So if you're more direct and you're able to talk about the fact that you want to sign clients for your business, then your call to action might be, take a look at your packages, the things you have to offer, or go over to your sales page or something like that if you have one set up. But if you are still in a day job and wanting to be very subtle, then you may just put, send me a DM. I'd love to talk to you about X, Y, and Z area of expertise, which is covered by your packages, right? When I say packages, I mean your offers. Okay, and then part 3 of this is where you go ahead and you feature your offers. And it's not like you go and say, hey, buy me, I'm trying to sell a bunch of stuff. That's not at all what I mean. Just make it clear and obvious that you have a process and you have something to sell, and that you have, you know how to get results for your clients. And so that when people come to your profile, they just see that. I set this up just in an effort to show you an example. Actually, what I did was I found people that would make a perfect example, and ended up just to show you guys, okay, this is what you need to do. But then I ended up totally respecting them and buying from both of them. So I didn't want to tell everyone to copy them. So I'm using my own. Just this is my LinkedIn featured section. So here's free resources. Here's work with me. Now, basically, if people go to my profile, they can actually see these. They can click in. They can get details about what it's like to work together. I've got one for client success stories, that sort of thing. And this was what it looks like on Instagram, press, coaching offers, client results, blah, blah, blah. So it's featured. My offers and transformations featured right on my profile. So step 5, sorry, I just wanted, I got to hurry because I know I have no time left. engage. So you go to that list of like 10 or so leaders in your sub niche, and not only do you contribute, leaving insightful comments and your thoughts on what they're saying in their to their community, but also take an opportunity to leave insightful thoughts and start conversations with the people who are commenting in that community, because those communities are aggregating your ideal client and their lookalikes. So they will then come over to your page and see you have something to offer and hire you. So those are the 5 steps. And there's a lot more. And we have an amazing free masterclass coming up on November 6th. 4 steps to monetizing data expertise in your small business. You're definitely invited to come. That's going to be live in just a few days. So if you want that, then just leave it in the comments. Tell me you want me to send you a link to join the free masterclass. And okay, I've gone over.
Awesome, Lillian. Thank you. Thank you so much. I didn't mean to interrupt. I know the short format, people are loving the format, but I know how difficult it is to get everything out in just 10 minutes. We do have time for one quick question from Jarrell here. And the question is, what tools and methods do you recommend for identifying and researching a sub niche?
Okay, so I recommend people go through all sorts of forums, Reddit, Quora, Facebook groups, also Alexa, and maybe like SEO Rush, or things like that. Start looking at, also going into Google Ads and looking into basically using their keyword research tool. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, Lillian, this was really helpful. Everyone who's still watching us, please go to bit.ly/monetize-data expertise, or tell Lillian, tag Lillian, she'll send you the link. Thank you so much, Lillian, for your time today. I definitely learned a lot, and I see that the audience got a lot out of this. At this point, I'm going to transition on to our closer. So Lillian, thank you again for your time. I'm going to remove the screen. All right.
Thank you for having me, Kate. It was fun. Sorry I was so long.
No, you're good. You're good. Thank you. All right. At this point, I will introduce our amazing closer of the conference. So her name is Deborah Berebichez. Debbie is the first Mexican woman to graduate from Stanford University with a PhD in physics. She co-hosts Discovery Channel's Outrageous Acts of Science TV show and appears as an expert on numerous international media outlets. Deborah was most recently the chief data scientist at Metis, where she led the creation and growth of exceptional data science training opportunities. She's an active speaker, presents several keynotes at data science conferences. I've actually heard her speak. She's amazing. Super excited to bring her up on stage here today. Debbie, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here.
Hello. I'm really excited to hear from you. I know your talk is about how we can change the world one equation at a time. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to hop off stage and take it away.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you everyone for being here. This is such a great conference. So I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to get right to it. I have identified 4 qualities that people should have in order to succeed in data science. They are curiosity, resilience, perseverance, and most importantly, pay it forward. Notice I didn't say any technical chops or technical background. I really do believe that all those things you can pick up, but if you don't have these 4 main ingredients, then chances are you're not going to give it your all, and this is not going to be the right field for you. Let me share my story very briefly and show you how these 4 things played out in order for me to succeed in STEM. I was a very curious and inquisitive child growing up in Mexico City. But as part of a conservative community, the people around me told me, my parents, teachers in school, that I better pick a more feminine career because mathematics and physics, which interests me, were not right for a young girl. So with time, I learned to hide my love for physics and math and my curiosity about the world of nature around me. When high school came, my advisors in school were not really that open. And they told me, you better pick a more feminine career. And so I picked a BA in philosophy. And 2 years down the road, I decided that my hunger and my curiosity to know more about nature and mathematics was not going to go away. Behind everyone's back, my parents and everyone, I started to read books of obscure physicists that inspired me. And I thought, maybe I won't be a very sociable being, but I'll have my science to be with me. So I applied to schools in the US because I had learned that you could do a double major. But I also thought it would be almost impossible because what we were paying for a private university in Mexico City was an eighth of the cost of what an American school would be. So I didn't think my parents would be able to afford it. I was extremely lucky to win a full scholarship to attend Brandeis University in Massachusetts. And there I attended my first physics course ever. It was an astronomy class, very general, almost no math. And I became friends with a teaching assistant, a graduate student by the name of Rupesh from India. And Rupesh and I became really good friends. And he saw that my eyes would light up every time I asked him questions about physics and math and classical mechanics and quantum mechanics. And he said that I truly had what was most important, which wasn't innate talent, but perseverance. And that what was most important to succeed in STEM was resilience, that the people who made it to the end were not the ones for whom obstacles didn't exist, because obstacles and challenges are part of everything, but most importantly are part of science, of the trial and error, and part of data science. He said the ones who succeed in the end are those who can get up every time they fall after a challenge, after an obstacle. And so Rupesh believed in me, and we went to his teaching advisor, Dr. Wardle, at the Brandeis department, and he said, we've done something like this with someone else in the past, because I only had a scholarship for 2 more years as I was a transfer student. He said, look, we can make you fit, we can help you to fit the entire physics major that normally takes 4 years into 2 years by having you learn this book. And he handed me a book called Div, Grad, and Curl, which was an alien language to me at the time. If in 2 months we'll test you and you can pass the test, then we'll let you skip through the first 2 years of the physics major. And that's how Rupesh decided to believe in me and mentor me and tutor me for that entire summer so that I could skip the first 2 years of the physics major and finish my degree at Brandeis with highest honors. I always was thankful to Rupesh, and I wanted to compensate him for all that he did for me and made my dream come true. But he cited that when he was growing up in India, in Darjeeling, there was an old man who used to come to his town and teach him and his sisters tabla, the musical instrument, math, and English. And this old man brought to Rupesh the pay it forward mission, because he said, no, you can't ever pay me. The only way you could ever pay me back is if you do this with someone else in the world. And that is how Rupesh passed the torch of knowledge to me. And that's how my life's mission began, to encourage and inspire other minorities, especially women who, like myself, feel attracted to STEM, but who for some reason, whether it be social or financial, feel that they cannot achieve their dreams. After Brandeis, I went on to study with the Nobel Prize winner, Steve Chu, and another Nobel Prize winner, Bob Laughlin, at Stanford University. And I was told that I became the first Mexican woman to graduate with a physics PhD from Stanford. And that taught me that with that privilege came responsibility. And now I devote a lot of my time to devise workshops, mentorship programs, and TV and communication strategies to bring women up to speed in STEM, to not only enable their growth within the field, but to really succeed and take their careers to the next level. So as you see, my story is throughout interlaced with these 4 concepts of curiosity, resilience, perseverance, and pay it forward. I have seen many people come to data science, machine learning, AI, and even if they have all the technical chops to succeed in the field, they may not make it, and they may not stay in it for a long time if they're not curious enough, if they're not resilient, if they expect every aspect of their career to be positive, if they're not perseverant, because you need to really want to find the answer to a problem. So my advice to all of you who want to enter this field is to continue to be curious. Data science is about solving problems, not about learning some algorithms and that continually evolve, and programming languages, which of course are very useful. But it's about continuing your path in learning problem solving skills, whatever it takes. Domain expertise, more programming languages, different pilotings of your algorithms, different ways of mitigating bias. All of these things come to a mind which is curious and which is always trying to find the solution to a problem. Also, paying it forward. I can't tell you how many opportunities I have found and I have seen people find in the field of data science when people help each other. We're still kind of a novel field, and we're still finding our way in how to help corporations to really gain insights from the things that we can come up with. And so helping others and doing data for good is something that is still incredibly important. So I definitely encourage all of you to lend your time and volunteer your resources and your thoughts to help solve problems, whether it's on the ethical side of data science or it's on the quantitative side. Just donate your time, learn, network with everyone doing this, network as much as you can, and the right job with the right mentorship will land on your path. Thank you so much for your attention.
Awesome, Debbie. Thank you so much for that. I love hearing your story about Rupesh and paying it forward. It's truly a world I'd love to live in, where everyone is focused not on just getting, the programming and technical skills for data science, but where they're really focusing on being curious about the data that they're working with and paying it forward and helping the larger community. You're getting a lot of great comments and questions here, and people are encouraging each other to pay it forward, to humanize the world. They're saying it's a really inspiring story, and they're really resonating and relating to it. We have time for one question for you, Debbie, and a few people have asked, what's more important to start with, soft skills or technical skills when you're starting out in data science?
Well, I would say what gets you in the door is the technical skills. So I definitely recommend having a strong basis in that. And bear in mind that nowadays you can get that basis all on your own. And I actually transitioned from physics, mind you, it's a very quantitative area, but I transitioned to data science on my own by taking, online courses on how to translate these mathematics into algorithms and what we do in data science. But as long as you are, again, resilient and you try to solve a few problems on your own and you get the cadence and the rhythm with which people solve these kind of problems, I think that's enough. And really what will convince a firm to hire you is how well you blend those very quantitative skills with the soft skills. These days, communicating your insights in entertaining and lay terms is so essential that you'll definitely stand out when it comes to comparing applicants with equal quantitative skills.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Debbie. And at this point, so we have like 2 minutes left for the conference. I'm just going to wrap up. So Debbie, thank you again so much for your time here today. All right. Can't believe the day actually came, and now we're at the ending ceremony of the first ever DATAcated conference. Definitely want to thank everybody who spoke at the conference. The speakers were truly amazing. If you've gotten value out of the conference, go ahead and comment DATAcated. I know we had 16 sessions, and I think I learned 16 new things today at least. So really, really thankful for all the speakers, as well as the community partners and the sponsors for supporting and making this happen. Couldn't do this without the entire data community. I almost called it a DATAcated community. Just one last reminder, if you have not officially registered for the conference, you can go to storybydata.com/DATAcatedConference. This way you can receive all the virtual goodies from the sponsors as well as any of the recordings of the session. All right, thank you all so much. At this point, I'll play a little firework conclusion video, and on that note, stay datacated.